All right. Thank you so much for your patience. I'm so sorry for the delay. We're going to go ahead and get this governing board meeting of the Tucson Unified School District going. It is Tuesday, April 26th. Thank you all for your patience and for your attendance, for those of you that are here with us and joining us online. Can I get a roll call to establish quorum, please?
Here.
Here.
Ms. Luna Rose.
Here.
Dr. Robbie.
Here.
Ms. Grijalva.
Here. Thank you. And so next on the agenda is the land acknowledgement statement. And I'm wondering if Ms. Luna Rose can read that for us. The student that we had that was going to be able to join us, unfortunately couldn't. Unless one of you would like to read it in the audience. No pressure. Yeah? Thank you. Go ahead.
For the exit,
Your name. Your name.
my name, okay.
There you go.
Check 1, 2. On behalf of the governing board of the Tucson Unified School District, I, Philip Harvey, acknowledge that the schools, buildings, and facilities of the Tucson Unified School District reside on the ancestral homeland of the Tohono O'odham Nation and the federally recognized tribal land of the Pascua Yaqui tribe.
Thank you very much. And so we have the Pledge of Allegiance. And I believe we have Gabriel Harmon. There you are. Hi, Gabriel. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for your patience and for joining us this evening. I'm going to read a little bit about you, if that's okay. Gabriel is in 8th grade at Mansfield Middle School. He loves to go bowling, play volleyball, and is a representative on the student council at Mansfield. Gabriel is also a great student and has a 4.0 GPA, congratulations, this year, and plans to attend Tucson High School next year. All right, Gabriel, whenever you're ready with the pledge, you can get started. They're going to put a flag on the screen, and we will all stand and wait for you.
Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for joining us, Gabriel. Are you ready to be a Badger next year?
I am.
Yep. Okay, good. Well, good luck for the rest of this year, and have a good summer getting ready for high school. Thank you for being here with us.
Thank you. You too.
Okay, next we have agenda adjustments. Dr. Trujillo?
President Grijalva, members of the governing board, public, good evening to everybody. Welcome. 2 agenda adjustments tonight. Number 1, our county health director has a tight schedule this evening, so I would request that we move item 8.1 to immediately follow these agenda adjustments before awards and recognitions. It is a non-voting item. It's an info item only, so I feel it's appropriate that we even put it in front of call to the audience due to her schedule. Secondly, I would like to pull item 6.5 from the agenda, from the consent agenda. And we will reschedule it for another meeting.
Okay, thank you. Board members, any issue with that? Okay, we will go ahead and do that. And now we are on item 8.1, and that is Tucson Unified School District COVID-19 Readiness and Response District Update, April 12th through April 26th. Dr. Trujillo?
Yes, President Grijalva, board members, it's always a pleasure to welcome back to the friendly confines of TUSD our Pima County Health Department Director, Dr. Teresa Cullen, who's going to brief the board and our community the current state of COVID-19 transmissions in the county and across our schools, and also to hear what the county, what their forecast is for the potential ramifications of the BA subvariant of Omicron that we've been hearing about and what we could possibly expect. Dr. Cullen, welcome back.
She's there. Dr. Cullen? Can you hear us okay?
I can. I couldn't.
There you
right
are.
Now.
Hi, how are
Yeah.
you?
I'm good. Were you
Thank
talking to me?
Yes, just a
I couldn't hear
moment.
you.
Thank you so much for joining us. We have just started this item, and I thank you so much for joining us. I know how busy you are. and we're turning it over to you.
Okay, cool. I think somebody has the slides.
Yes, you can just say next and they'll move
Oh,
on.
okay, because I can't see what slide we're on. Is this
Just the very first one.
Okay, okay. Next is a land acknowledgement, and you just did that. So
We did
I'm not
that.
going to do
We're all
another
good.
one. Okay, next slide is the agenda. I have a lot of slides. I'm going to go kind of fast. So the agenda slide, as you can see, I'm just going to go over all of this. So next slide says COVID-19 community transmission. And then let's go to the one right after that. It should say community level data. As you hopefully know, we are in low community transmission. We have 20 cases per 100,000. You'll recall there was a time when we were much higher than this, in the multiple hundreds. Only 1% of our staffed inpatient beds in the hospitals have COVID patients in them. Less than 10 deaths. While we mourn every death, this is a very significant decrease in the number of deaths we've had. And our positivity rate is 4.48%. And I'm going to talk about the variant later. Next slide. So the next slide shows you the COVID cases, the epi curve. And that shows you once again the kind of, so we could go one more. Yeah, that's it. So you can see how that number is really low out there on the right side of your screen. And that's where we were last summer. So we're really excited to be there. Next slide. This slide has the total COVID-19 cases in Pima County schools. I have the specific numbers for TUSD, but you can see 86% of students, 14% of staff, and over 20,000 positive cases in the schools since we started counting. Next slide. This just shows you the numbers that we're seeing each day. This is Pima County overall, and you may or may not know, but there have been days in the past when we were seeing multiple hundreds cases. So a total of a single digit of 7 is a significant decrease. Next slide. The next slide showed the cases by age group, and you can see the 0 to 11 age group is the highest. Now, the reason why there's older ages, obviously, is because we also have had faculty and staff that have been reported. Next slide. The vaccination rates in Pima County, 73% of residents are fully vaccinated. I'll let you guys read this, but you can see 86.8% of residents ages 5 and over have received at least one vaccine, and 47% of residents age 12 and over, those are the only ones that are eligible for a booster, have received a booster. This is significantly contributing to our decrease rates. Next slide. And the next slide gives you this by the 5 to 9, and you can see that 48% of the 5 to 9s have had one dose, and 10 to 14, 65%, 15 to 19, 73%. Next slide. And the next slide is the boosters, and as you know, the boosters are not eligible for 12 and lower, so that's why you see 0% in 5 to 9. But you can see which is really what we want to see. This we would love to have boosters everywhere, but obviously our highest age group that's at risk are the people 50 and over. Next slide. We did want to give you the updated guidance on boosters. This just came out in the last week. This tells you who's eligible for boosters. And I'm not going to go over this because I'm hoping that these slides would be available and you guys should be able to read it. Next slide. The next slide shows the school-based vaccination clinics. And as you can see, this is by month here as you go along. So school-based vaccine clinics are still available and they can be booked through this self-scheduling tool, or you can call me or get a hold of our school-based team. And as you can see, we did a lot in the winter months, November, December, and January. They've fallen off a little, but we are available to come to your schools and do those. Next slide. And then the next slide. So almost 7,000 total positive COVID-19 cases in TUSD, but you can once again see, remember that Omicron wave, that's where you're seeing those really high numbers, 1,300, 1,090, and then this very, very significant drop off. Next slide. The next slide shows you that 85% of the cases reported from District 1 were in students, 15% in staff. And next slide. This is actually probably the best slide. The lowest incident rate for TUSD since August of 21 is right now. So this is very, very reassuring data. I'm hoping you're obviously seeing this with the families and in the classrooms, and we're excited to see this kind of significant drop in terms of the number of cases. As you can see in April, that's the total number of the middle column case count, so 55 cases for the month as we go forward. So great news. Next slide. And once again, the cases in the school districts, this is equivalent to what you saw on that other side. Obviously, the younger kids, there's higher case numbers consistent with the fact that many of them, the immunizations are lower. Next slide. We were asked to talk briefly about the variant. This gives you a sense of the variant. BA2 is 75% of what we're seeing in Region 9, and then I'll show you that very soon, 85% of it. The BA2.12.1, these may not mean much to you, but that's the one you're hearing about, is increasing in the East Coast. So it's 19% nationally, but there's a higher level of that in Region 2. And you can see the second bullet down, the CDC believes that anyone with the Omicron infection, regardless of vaccination status, so if you are ill and you get diagnosed with COVID, you are still eligible to spread the virus even if you've had your vaccine. So it's important that you spend that 5 days isolating. Next slide. This is a national slide, and if you see where the 85.2 is and the region that 9 number, that's how HHS, Health and Human Services, divides the country. And so for BA2, 85% is there. That BA, the other variant I just talked about, the VA2.12.1, is higher in the New England, in the New York area, and that's why you're seeing increased cases reporting. Next slide. We wanted to just go through a few other slides that we thought were important. There are mental health resources for students, teachers, and school personnel impacted by COVID. I think you guys are aware of that. We did get ELC, which interestingly enough means electronic lab reporting, but it's just the mechanism for the grant that came in. We did get notice about 2 weeks ago that that grant was extended for a year. So now we will be able to have these resources available through May of 23. So these are all on this slide, or where these resources are available, but they are for behavioral health resources for anyone impacted by COVID. Next slide. This is just, once again, information. I do want you to be aware that while home test kits are available, testing at school is available, we are still supporting 2 COVID-19 testing sites. They are both through Paradigm. One is at the airport, and one is what we call the 6009 site. That's on Grant, right by Tucson Medical Center. Their hours are available on the website, and vaccines are still available, remember, at most pharmacies, but on the 3rd floor of the Public Health Department building, the Abrams building, vaccines are available, just like they have been in the past. So we would encourage you to get that. Next slide. And I just wanted to finish up with some slides about, and you can go ahead, about routine vaccination status. You know, in the midst of COVID, and because the schools were closed or virtual and many families were at home, we were at risk for missing routine childhood immunizations. And we have seen that in Pima, though we've done better than many of the other counties, but we are seeing a slight decrease in routine vaccination coverage. Next slide. We're also seeing an increase in requests for exemptions in Pima County, and you can see this here, as well as a decrease in those who are fully immunized. Next slide. And the next slide just shows you the vulnerability. The ARV is immunization vulnerability. And what we really want to have, as you guys know, is we need vaccination rates of about 90% to make sure we're protecting everybody. So the last slide just shows you, I'm sorry I went through these so fast, but one more slide, and that shows what we're doing. We're going to initiate a catch-up campaign to increase childhood and adolescent immunization coverage. We're going to focus that on the high social vulnerability areas. We're going to expand our public health nursing and school partnerships to include more routine childhood immunization clinics. The one thing I will say that if you come to the Abrams Clinic right now to get COVID, you can still get a flu vaccine. And I should make you aware that not in District 1, but in a few other districts, we are seeing some influenza outbreaks in classrooms. So just be aware that you can come and get the flu shot still. And that this is my last slide. And thank you for letting me go through that so fast and for putting me earlier in the agenda. I'm very grateful for that.
Thank you for all that information, Dr. Cullen. Does any board member have any questions? No, I think that your slides were really thorough, so we appreciate them. And they're available online. Is the presentation available online, Dr. Trujillo? Yes, the presentation is available. Okay. Any other questions? Well, thank you so much, Dr. Cullen. I think the news is great, and we're all really happy. We're all very excited about that. So we appreciate you.
Thank you so much. And thank you for your support over the last 2 years. And we look forward to continuing engagement with the school district.
Thank you, Dr. Cullen. Have a good evening. Thank you. And so now, Dr. Trujillo, we're on to awards and recognition.
Yes, President Grijalva, members of the governing board. Obviously, everybody's favorite part of the meeting is our awards and recognition. So we'll go ahead and get started.
And it's the first time we've had students in our boardroom in
Yes, we've got some students.
almost 3 years.
Yes,
So we're very happy to see your faces.
So let us go ahead and get started with our first recognition. The Tucson Festival of Books, one of the premier literacy events here in Pima County and the city of Tucson. And we've got some students recognized for excellence in literacy at the Tucson Festival of Books. The Young Author Winners. Poetry holds an imaginative and perceptive awareness of experience with language, which is chosen and arranged to create specific emotional responses through meaning, sound, and rhythm. It speaks to who we are and what we understand of our world and our realities. Celebrating National Poetry Month in April, we would like to acknowledge these young poets for their hard work and dedication. Altrusa International of Tucson is a service organization of volunteers who support literacy. The Tucson Club has been actively involved in Tucson for over 80 years and sponsored the Young Authors Competition at this year's Tucson Festival of Books. The Young Authors
Wait, Dr.
received
Trujillo,
various
really
prizes.
quick, I'm so sorry. I forgot to do this earlier. ¿Hay alguien que necesita los servicios de un intérprete? Porque aquí tenemos a alguien que te puede asistir. Okay. I just wanted to make sure we didn't have any parents that were in the audience waiting. Thank you.
So the young authors that were recognized for excellence in poetry at this year's Tucson Festival of Books are the following poets. From Drachman Montessori, Aubrey Steady, second grade, for her poem entitled The End of the World. From Johnny White Elementary, Jorge Velasco, second grader, for his poem Nana. And from Line Weaver Elementary, representing the Lions, for her poem, fifth grader, Anya Uyuhara Skap, her poem entitled Dig Became Wolf. And from Ross Scrooge, K-8 bilingual magnet, Ryan Oden, seventh grade, for his poem entitled Ode to the Fall. And from Safford, K-8, Safford Middle School, eighth grader, Isel Olivia, for her poem entitled Where I'm From. We also had a young artist winner in the Friends of Western Art sponsor at the Student Art Competition. They have donated over $16,000 in grants to teachers and other projects this year. I'm proud to announce that this year's talented artist is from Monzo Elementary, Kay Saddleback Burnside, fourth grade. Congratulations. Some round of applause. As well as all of our winners from the Tucson Festival of Books, you can see my in-person recognition skills are a little rusty, you don't have to do the in-person applause for the Zoom meeting. So celebrate all of our student poets and, of course, our artist from Monzo. Our next recognition, let's talk about the Brain Bowl. Let's talk about the Brain Bowl, one of the premier academic events that we have here in the Tucson Unified School District. And this year, we're going to talk about Brain Bowl at Booth Pickett. And the top two finishers in this year's Brain Bowl, we have Booth Pickett in second place, and we have the Brain Bowl champions from Dodge Middle School. This is the 8th annual Black History Month Brain Bowl competition, which took place in February. Students competed head-to-head, responding to questions about the legacy and achievements of African Americans in our great nation, in the state of Arizona, here in Tucson, and even right here in the Tucson Unified School District. Two schools, of course, emerged as the top winners, finishing in the top two places. Booth Pickett, led by their advisor, James Hitz. Of course, Dodge and their team, for the third time in 3 years, Dodge Middle School won first place and were led by their advisor, Micah Mills. The winners received medals, certificates, earbuds, and of course, this congratulations by our governing board. Let's give our Brain Bowl champions a round of applause. A logistical note as we continue at the conclusion of the recognition of the slide portion of the recognition. One by one, we will call students and their families that are here for attendance for pictures. And we'll do that, of course, at the conclusion of the final slide. So next slide, please. And the champs are in the house. So we are very, very excited to have middle school state champions in basketball. This is something never been done in my tenure here in TUSD, and I'm a huge basketball fan. So we are proud to welcome the champs in-house tonight, Gridley boys basketball state champs. It was an exciting battle of the districts to the last second in the state championship game, and there is no better feeling than beating a Vail School District school for that state title. TUSD versus Vail. Yeah, give a round of applause. Gridley made it to the championship game after being tested throughout the tournament. From winning a close game on a game-winning three-point shot by Alicia Rogers to coming together as a team and fully executing large marginal victories, Gridley faced Desert Sky in the championship round. Desert Sky started with the hot hand and made 45% of their three-point shots from downtown, giving them the lead throughout the entire game. At halftime, Gridley was down by 18 points. Our 8th grade captain, Gerardo Llamas, displayed why he is the leader of this team. Gerardo looked at his teammates and stated, "We're fine. We need to get a few stops on defense and see the ball go through the net. I promise you, we will be okay." Sure enough, our team captain was right, and he inspired his teammates to get back in the game. With 45 seconds left in the game, Gridley was down by 6 points, but pushed to tie the game 50-50 with 12 seconds left. Gerardo Llamas stole the ball from Desert Sky and got fouled. With 6 seconds left, Gerardo made both of his free throws to give Gridley its first lead of the game, 52-50, and it would be the only lead they would need. As Desert Sky would not get off a final shot to tie the game, Gridley would become state middle school champions in basketball, led by tournament MVP Gerardo Llamas, who averaged 37 points in the entire tournament. Congratulations, Gridley Middle School's basketball team. And this type of performance in season doesn't happen without the dedicated educators and coaches standing behind these young people. We want to recognize head coach Andre Bearden and assistant coach we have Mr. Paul Cunningham, both proud faculty members over there at Gridley, leading these young athletes. Give them a round of applause as well. And I believe we have some more recognitions, and then we're going to do some wonderful pictures with our state champs and, of course, with everybody else here in attendance for recognitions. We have some academic superstars to talk about coming from Pueblo High School. No strangers to Flynn Scholar Excellence. They rake them in every single year. The Flynn Scholar Program has named 39 of the state's highest achieving students as Flynn finalists, advancing them to the final round of interviews for the Flynn Scholarship. The scholarship, valued at more than $130,000, includes funding for tuition, housing, meals, and a study abroad at one of Arizona's 3 public state universities. Among the finalists are Choya High School's Alicia Salazar Contreras, and from Pueblo High School, Antonio Vega. What began as a group of 1,100 talented Arizona high school seniors has been trimmed to 39 Flynn finalists, 2 of whom come from 2 of the proudest TUSD high school communities that we have, Choya Chargers, Pueblo Warriors. Congratulations, Alicia and Antonio. Congratulations for this wonderful, wonderful achievement. Our next give them a round of applause. And our next recognition, we want to recognize recently retired, but still working for us part-time, coming back, is our former Director for Health Services, Nikki Stefan, is selected as one of the Fabulous 50 nurses. Congratulations for being selected as a Fabulous 50 nurse. Each year, the Tucson Nurses Week Foundation, in collaboration with the American Nurses Association, celebrates the accomplishments, innovations, and contributions of nurses to the health of our community by honoring 50 outstanding nurses during National Nurses Week in May. The Fabulous 50. To become a member of the Fabulous 50, you must be an outstanding nurse within and outside of your workplace. These are nurses who go beyond in their professional and personal lives, giving of themselves to make our community a better and a healthier place. Nikki Stefan, retired Director of Health Services and currently the Tucson Unified School District COVID Coordinator, will be recognized and celebrated on May 7th, gala and awards event. Nikki has been a vital part of the TUS team of administrators and district leaders working tirelessly through the last 18 months and almost 2 years of this unprecedented worldwide pandemic, positively contributing to the health and safety of students, staff, and community. Congratulations, Nikki, on a well-deserved recognition and honor. You are truly fabulous. Let's give her a round of applause. And sadly, the TUSD community must say goodbye and farewell to a TUSD legend. There is no Tucson Unified School District without H.V. Summers. Summers, who worked multiple positions in the Tucson Unified School District throughout a nearly 30-year career, was instrumental in building the district into what it is today. Starting as a bookstore manager at Tucson High in 1953, Summers went on to work in central administration, where he was eventually named business manager in 1960. By the time he retired, Summers held the role of assistant superintendent of business. Having been a part of the district as it saw exponential growth, Summers was vital to the construction of schools. The former TUSD employee understood how important the community is for the schools, so he made sure all school libraries had outdoor entrances so anyone could use the facilities when needed. Other areas of accomplishment include creating the TUSD warehouse and the central kitchen for food services. Throughout his entire career, daughter Debbie Summers, also a former TUSD employee and Utterback Middle School principal, said, "Kids were always my father's first thought." Our condolences, best wishes, and fond memories of a leader who built this district through his passion and his commitment to service is with the Summers family. Today we observe a moment of silence as we recognize that the bright and brilliant future of this district is based on the commitment and service of those heroes and leaders that have served in its past, and that certainly was the case, Mr. H.V. Summers. So please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. And now I will ask Leslie if we can arrange any of our recognition participants here that came in person so we can coordinate photos. So we will begin with the Booth Fickett Brain Bowl team. Come on up. Do we have Dodge Brain Bowl as well, or just Booth Fickett? Okay. Okay. Give a round of applause, please.
Okay. Thank you. All right, now we are on board member activity reports. Board members.
Dr. Roddy?
Ms. Luna Rose, we'll
Like,
just
maybe
go
we
down
can
the
just
line.
go down the
Whoever
line?
wants to. Yeah.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. Okay, so a little bit of a busy last couple of weeks. Went to kind of bounced around the district a little bit. I attended the Aliceville Star Party, which was a lot of fun. We got to look at a cluster of stars, and there wasn't any planets out because it's not really, well, during the time wasn't really conducive to that, but it was fun. And there was so many thanks to the Aliceville PTSA for all their work. They're a very active group, and anybody out there that is having plans to send their son or daughter to Aliceville, I highly recommend getting involved with their PTSA. They're a great group. Also sat in a really lovely meeting with accreditors for Mary Meredith, which, and I got to talk about just what a wonderful program it is. And if you're not familiar, their building actually is just right behind here. And just Judy over there and her staff and what they do with the kids is amazing. And so I was privileged to be able to talk about, as a board member, what I thought about the program and what I think is working and not necessarily not working, but it was a good meeting. So thank you for that. Took a tour of Public Gardens. Thank you to Principal Michael Conrad. I had not, as embarrassed as a Tucson native, had never stepped on the campus of Public Gardens, and what a wonderful school that is. And they do have a wonderful garden right in the middle of the school. They have a tortoise. I couldn't see her, but it's just so lovely, and it's such a welcoming community. So I want to thank him and his staff for their time. And I also attended a communications meeting with the communication staff of TUSD, and their team talks about what they're doing for outreach to the community, about what the district is doing. And also there's members of that have communications background. They're on the committee, and so that's always a really lively discussion. So thank you to Leslie and her staff for allowing me to attend. And lastly, last week I attended one of the very last of the strategic plan meetings at Puebla High School, and spoke to some parents, and it was a very nice way to see what the district is thinking about in terms of the future. And there is, and Dr. Trujillo stepped out, but there's opportunity to be able to go look at it, the strategic plan online, and you can still give your comment. It's still open to the public. And I highly suggest anybody that's interested to go do so and see what we're planning for the future. And many thanks to the parents who came to me at Pueblo, had really nice discussions about what they think we are doing right as a district, and of course what they think we could be improved on. And it's always nice to hear from the public. So that's what I have for this report.
Thank you. Any other board member? Dr. Ravi, go ahead.
Thank you, President Grijalva. Some great visits over the last few weeks since our last activity report. We got a chance to go to our Brickta Early Learning Center, and thank you, Reem Kivid and the team there, for a great tour of our programming and services for our youngest members of our TUSD community, from just a few weeks of life to preschool. And it was great to see some of the challenges and some of the successes out at Brickta. I had a chance to visit Mansfield Magna Middle School. That was my first time at that beautiful campus. Gorgeous building, gorgeous facilities, and some great work. Thank you, Principal Van Schie, to show me what the Bulldogs are doing over at Mansfield, from our Verizon Learning labs and some of the technology integrations to art and other performances out there. So great work over at Mansfield. And they have a beach volleyball court, which I never knew. That was pretty surprising. I'd never seen one in the school before. I also had a chance to head to my daughter's homeschool, Line Weaver Elementary, for their spring festival. Got to see our very own Miss Shaw volunteering there, another Lion parent, and so excited to be there, supporting the Lions and the PTO at Line Weaver for a fun-filled night of activities. So a great month visiting schools throughout our district.
Thank you. Ms. Shaw.
Thank you, Ms. Grijalva, and good evening, everyone. Also had a busy couple weeks touring the district. In early April, I attended the district-wide track meet for elementary students. My daughter was competing for her school, Line Weaver, and she ran the 200 and did the long jump, and she earned second place medal, and Line Weaver overall received first place. And I just want to congratulate all the students that participated in it, and also all the coaches who kept everyone's spirits high and led their team to the district-wide track meet, and it was fabulous. And really getting there, training is that's a win in itself. So congratulations to everyone. On another day, I stopped in at Mackey Middle School and got a tour from their principal. During this tour, I had the opportunity to stop in a classroom where students were doing a social justice project that was self-initiated, and they got to choose an issue that was important to them. And so that was great to see them caring about things that are happening not only in the local community but their world. Later on, I had the privilege of also visiting Bricta's Infant and Early Learning Center, where Ms. Keevitt gave me a tour of the facility and introduced me to their wonderful staff and beautiful students. And since I was on the west side, I also stopped in that day at our school safety headquarters, which is at Menlo Park, where Mr. Hallams and Mr. Vildusea gave me a tour of the ins and outs of that department with the training and dispatch and traffic. So that was really interesting. Also yesterday I visited Lawrence, where I was given a tour by their principal, Ms. Stanbrook, and I also heard about all the good work happening through their Restart Smart initiative on their campus. Last but not least, I went down the road that day and visited the Southwest Educational Center, where they have a family resource center there with all kinds of things available to the community that surrounds it, including like a free clothing bank, food bank, and they also do classes for parents. Check out any of our resources if you're interested. Family resource centers, if you need any resources, because they have an abundance available to our community. I also stopped in at the DAPE program that's located at that center and got to speak with Mr. Leroy Johnson, who's worked at our district for a very long time and shared with me all the success stories that he helped with in the DAPE program over the years. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I decided that I would continue love of reading just indefinitely because I like going into classrooms. And so I was able to visit Wright, Davis, Tolson, Warren, Marybelle McCorkle, and read to several classes when I was there and got tours of the campus. So I'm very appreciative of the time there. I filmed a Literacy Connects video with some students from Wakefield Middle School, and so we filmed it there at Wakefield, and that was really fun. I had a meeting with some Pima County staff regarding the PEEPS program, which is preschool funding, but funded from Pima County. And so we're talking about some of the things that we can do within all of the schools, but specifically, obviously, I was focused on TUSD to try to expand the program. I also was a part of the Mary Meredith accreditation, but I wasn't able to join when Miss Luna Rose did. It was like about 2 hours after that. But you did everything. They just needed another person to say that both of us agreed, so it was great. I was able to go and sit in on the strategic plan review that Dr. Trujillo arranged at Saguaro High School, and so that's going to be something that I know is going to be online, and if we can put some media blasts out there on where people can check that out, that would be great. I was able to go to Pueblo High School for their academy presentations and sit in on what the projects have been for these students that have been part of the academy, and that was great. And then was proud to represent the governing board at the Mexican American Student Services recognition at the U of A Grand Ballroom. And it was really fun and nice to see so many students get acknowledged for all of their hard work throughout all of their high school years. Okay, so I think that is it. Now we're going to move on to call to the audience, and I will turn it over to Ms. Luna Rose.
Thank you, President Grijalva. Okay. During the audience call, the board clerk will recognize speakers and maintain order by setting appropriate limitations. The governing board is committed to the safety of the entire TUSD community. In order to observe the recommended safeguards for reducing the rate of spread of COVID-19, the following procedures related to call of the audience portion of the board meetings will be observed. All public comments for the meeting were accepted by either emailing or calling the board office to have names added to the list, or by emailing written comments to be read in the record by noon the day of the meeting. If public comments were sent in, they will be read into the record by the program coordinator of staff services to the governing board. Individuals addressing the board should observe rules of propriety and good conduct and refrain from impertinent or slanderous remarks. TUSD serves students from all ages, so speakers should be aware that children may be present or listening. Our staff will make sure each board member receives a copy of all written comments. At the conclusion of the call to the audience, the governing board president will ask if individual board members wish to respond to criticism made by those who have addressed the board, wish to ask staff to review a matter, or wish to ask that a matter be put on a future agenda. By law, at most 2 board members can address any single issue raised during the call to the audience. And first letter to be read this evening is from Janessa Nagori.
Our schools are aging. They don't
Your mic isn't on, Yolanda.
Yolanda, your mic's not on.
Our schools are aging.
Let's try that instead.
Our schools are aging. They don't need cosmetic repairs, they need basic repairs. Roofing and working PA systems should be priorities at all of our schools. Short-term leaks cause inconveniences, but long-term effects are more costly and more dangerous. In one classroom at Pueblo High School, there are at least 2 areas where roof leaks have created mold issues. Tiles were replaced in one area, but if the source, the roof, was not properly addressed, it will come back. I was told these roof areas were fixed, but there are other roof leaks throughout the school, and without rain, I cannot be assured that they were properly fixed. Tests were not run to my knowledge on the mold, but it was black in color. Our schools could be giving our kids long-term respiratory problems. The other long-term problems include damage done by water to classroom items and structural rot. From what I have seen, there is already potential for loss of structural integrity. Schools don't need new AstroTurf, they need new roofs. They need working PA systems in every room. Not everywhere on campuses has reception for the Remind system. The general delay associated with reception-based applications can lead to a dangerous situation if staff and students are not informed immediately of a lockdown situation, as has been the case with every lockdown in at least one classroom for almost the last 4 years. Our students and staff are at risk because the assumed backup system is riddled with failure points. I was told by students who have been there for 4 years that TUSD has been made aware of the work order several times, and by the principal that when the system was revamped in about April of 2021, it was noted that there were a few areas that did not have working PA systems and even what parts were needed for the repairs. The current allocation of money is putting our children and our schools at risk. Allocation and how these funds are spent should be properly researched so that most critical items are funded. It saves money to maintain instead of waiting for failures. To keep our schools open, to keep our kids safe, thank you for your time. Respectfully, Janessa Nagor.
Thank you. Next, letter to be read in person from Lisa Heltemis. Have I spelled it? Okay. And my apologies if I butchered your last name. Oh, thank you.
I'm here advocating for my son. He is Oh, I'm so sorry. First time I've ever done this. So I'm here actually advocating for my son. He's been a TUSD employee for 18 years. For the past 16, he's been a custodian. He's worked in 2 or 3 elementary schools and a high school. I'm here advocating for his pay. The rate of pay for custodians runs from $13 an hour to $15.09, according to the website on TUSD. For 16 years, he makes $13.26 an hour. In looking at your talent acquisition for the past 4 or 5 months that's been posted, I looked about 23 new custodians, not custodian ones or lead custodians, but custodians. And about 20 of those have been hired above $13.26. So I guess my question would be is, after 16 years, why isn't he at the top end of that pay scale? At one point in time, in 1 year, he got no raise, none. One time it was 12 cents an hour. Well, by the time you take out retirement and extra for health care, etc., it was like maybe 3 cents. So I'm asking that possibly HR do an analysis of, and I'm sure he's not the only one in that pay range and that level. I'm sure there's others out there that have happened. But in order to attain and retain people, I believe something has to get done to get people up to par. I mean, right now we have an 8.1% inflation rate. He co-parents his son. I mean, it's $13.26 an hour after 16 years. I just don't think that's right. So I'm asking that maybe HR does an analysis, and I'm sure overall for everyone, for all pay grades. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next is letter to be read from Glenda Rodriguez, Susan Ramirez, and Pat Hernandez.
To whom it may concern, we have heard there will be a longevity payout to retain dedicated employees that have been in the district a long time. Our names are Susan Ramirez, attendance registration tech at Tully Elementary for over 31 years, Concepcion Rodriguez, office manager for 36 years, and Pat Hernandez, health assistant, 31 years. We reached out to Renee Heuser in HR. She explained the July longevity pay process to us. It will be calculated from the entry-level pay in each of our job positions. Office manager entry level, $16.45. Attendance registration tech entry level, $13.65. Health assistant entry level, $13. So if you take 1% over 31 years, comes in around $4.50, give or take an hour. Great, right? But if you add that to our entry-level pay, all of us will still not receive this longevity pay due to our current salaries. So again, we are not receiving the compression pay nor longevity pay. We feel that an employee who has been in the district over 30 years with outstanding evaluations year in and out needs to be recognized for their loyalty and dedication to Tully schools, students, parents, school community, and TUSD1. Can you please explain how 3 people who have been in the district for over 30 years will not receive a decent compensation? We hope the governing board and the district will take another look at how they calculate this longevity pay so that it will help the employees that have been here a long time. Also, when our positions, attendance registration tech, health assistant, are being discussed, We are being referred to as clerks, and those clerk positions are lower pay and grade. Clerks are grade 3, attendance, registration tech, health assistants are grade 6. We want you to know that we love our jobs. We will continue to give 110% to Tully School, as we have done for over 30 years. Thank you for your time and continued support. Respectfully, Glenda Rodriguez, Office Manager, Susan Ramirez, Attendance Registration Tech, and Pat Hernandez, Health Assistant.
Thank you. Next letter to be read in person is Mr. Art Lopez.
I don't have a letter. First of all, thank you very much. And then also, my son would like to thank you for the early spring break and the extended spring break because of the mask mandate you guys put on. That being said, that was my responsibility to keep him home. Now I want to thank Adelita for responding to my emails. Out of all the board members I CC'd you on, and especially you, Gabe, as a leader, I think you should have responded. But thank you, Adelita. With that being said, that's my responsibility to keep him home. If I don't agree with something, it's my responsibility. House Bill 2616 passed. Now it's my responsibility to, if my son's going to wear a mask or not. For the last 2 years, it's been my responsibility to to keep the safety of my son. Not any one of you, not Dr. Colin, who never doesn't respond, doesn't present herd immunity. How many of those people who had COVID were vaccinated? You know, that's not on there. But those numbers that get thrown out there make it seem like, oh, it's the cases, this and that. Those data numbers, those data points are skewed. So what I'm getting at is that I know House Bill 2616 will not start until 90 days after the legislative session ends. So I hope that if it ends June 1st, that August, when school starts back up, there's not going to be masks, just to spite us, the group that we have here. If you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. If you want to wear a mask the rest of your life because you're afraid, wear a mask. I don't care. I'm not going to have no adult tell my son or my sons what to do. If I feel that they're endangered, then that'll be me. When the Delta variant hit last July, I went to Dodger Stadium, sold out stadium, and LA County had mandatory mask mandate. There was about less than 5% of the fans had masks on. My son and I did not get sick. And I'm also a survivor of the winter of death. I'm not vaccinated, so I'm a survivor of that. So, and I'm sure there's a couple other survivors here of the winter of death. So whose choice is it to make for my son? Not you guys and ladies. It's my choice. Okay? So I hope if you guys do not put the mask on the kids ever again. And it won't, because House Bill 2616 will not allow that without my consent. Thank you. I see the time up there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next is Miss Melissa Conroy.
School board members, I can't understand why you or the Red for Ed people are pushing masks so much. If you're so afraid of catching a virus, wear your mask. In fact, wear 5 masks. I don't care. But you have no right to force my child to ever wear a mask again. You need to get over the paranoia about a minor respiratory infection that does not affect children that much. The masks are not the savior of mankind. In fact, they're detrimental, especially to children who have the least amount of risk. I'm convinced everyone will get COVID or most likely have already had it and didn't even know it. So stop being so afraid. There are therapeutics that heal a person with COVID. It's criminal how the powers that be suppress it and how we would have never gone through this pandemic if the actual solution was told to the public. Around Thanksgiving, my family and I actually got COVID. My second grader had a fever for one night and then he was fine the next day. My teenager never tested positive for COVID with no symptoms, which shows you how contagious since he was living with all of us. I have an autoimmune disease with 2 comorbidities, so I was a little fearful and I started taking therapeutics right away. And within 1 week, I was fine. My husband was the same. However, he didn't start the therapeutics as early as I did because he had no comorbidities or autoimmune disease, so it took him longer to recover, which tells me that therapeutics actually work. I have a friend who passed away from COVID because the hospital put her on a ventilator and gave her remdesivir, which shut down her kidneys. So she didn't die of COVID, she died from the remdesivir. Masking equals child abuse. Because of the mask, young children have suffered 24% cognitive decline. Masks may not leave physical signs, but they do cause significant and possibly permanent damage to a child's brain, delaying speech and language development, paralyzing social skills, and creating a vicious cycle of emotional problems that leads to major depression, self-harm, and substance abuse. COVID is not nearly as dangerous as we were led to believe, and that many of the mitigation policies cause serious damage of all kinds, including deaths, but not because of COVID. Keep the masks off of our kids. I do not co-parent with the government or the CDC. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next letter will be read, and the letter is from Corina Ontiveros.
TUSD Governing Board, thank you for your time. I write this note to ask you to include TEA as part of the decision-making process regarding the current in-time decisions around COVID-19 measures. In particular, I ask you to support the COVID-19 Health and Safety MOU issued by the TEA Health and Safety Committee and the TEA Building Action Team. Like many others within the TUSD community and beyond, TEA needs to be part of the decision around what impacts all in throughout TUSD and the greater Tucson community. Many, many thanks to TUSD board member Sadie Shaw for motioning for the board to continue the discussion about the necessity of TEA TUSD COVID-19 Task Force and the implementation of the MOU. Many thanks to Dr. Shaw for support as well. We look forward to the steps next in the implementation of the TEA TUSD COVID-19 Task Force and the implementation of the MOU. Nothing less than the health, lost, schooling, and indeed the lives of all is impacted by what comes next. I share my family's experience of this horrible illness in that my husband was intubated and hospitalized for over 4 months in his experience of COVID, and now is still in a recuperatory phase a year later. My daughter, a college student, is dealing with her second bout of COVID, thankfully less severe due to the COVID booster she got as soon as she could. Thank you for your time. We appreciate your leadership and implore you to act with the haste and decision on the part of all whom you represent. Sincerely, Corina T. Ontiveros, a TUSD teacher.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Miss Margaret Cheney.
Thank you. Good evening, board members, President Grijalva, Dr. Trujillo. My name is Margaret Cheney. I'm the president of the Tucson Education Association. We came to this board meeting hoping to hear some good news to tell members in our next meeting. That for the first time in 3 years, bargaining was wrapping up early, and we had addressed issues that have been weighing heavily on some of our most vulnerable workers. We also came to tell you that the work we do cannot stop there, but must permeate into more support for those workers in the form of upholding policies and consensus language. As we end this year, we know there are some tough decisions to be made. What we're saying is that the budget needs to prioritize its employees. If employees are not the first consideration when working out our budget, TUSD should expect to lose many good workers. We shouldn't need to work from whatever is left over from that budget. We are calling on this budget to respect us, protect us, and pay us. Respect us by including us as partners in the decision-making and value our input from the beginning. Protect us by creating clear, transparent plans and protocols for whatever comes next in the COVID era. And understand the fragility of your workers should there be a need to discipline employees. And of course, to pay us a fair wage which strives to lead education wages in Pima County so that we attract good educators and so that we retain the educators we still have at a time when there's a mass exodus of people leaving this profession in the state. We want to further the good work we started by continuing ongoing conversations between board members and employees so that you may all have an idea of the many jobs and duties that are under your control. We cannot expect things to be perfect in a state that does not honor public education. But let's continue the work. Let's do the right thing. TUSD employees have put in more hours, had more stress, and shed more tears in the last 2 years than at any other time in their careers. We must prioritize the amazing individuals who have managed to help kids not only through the rigors of schooling, through a computer, and through masks, but also the social and emotional challenges all kids have faced. Honor our educators with significant salary increases, agreed upon safety measures, and by working together to improve our district. Respect us, protect us, and for God's sakes, pay us. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Nellie Rivera. Ms. Rivera, are you here? Nellie? Okay. Next, Jern Blandedson.
I really appreciate being here in public, like face to face. I don't agree with y'all, but I really like being able to.
I'm sorry, sir. The call to the audience is for you to speak to us, not to the audience.
I don't agree with everybody, what they say.
Thanks.
But it's really nice to be able to hear people. And I don't want to come complain every time. I really appreciate, I saw this video the other day about the TUSD construction competition over at Catalina High School. That's awesome. My son actually is in JTED over at Tucson High learning how to do welding. I think that's, I really appreciate that. There's a lot of good stuff. All right, well, there's some good stuff that I see at TUSD, and I'm grateful for that. Some stuff I'm not as grateful for. I wanted to share just, so I have to, and I don't know how to pronounce this, is it Fruchtendler?
Fruchtendler.
Fruchtendler. Elementary school. I found a book there. Page 91, it reads, "What if I told you I touched another guy's D-I-C-K? What if I told you I sucked it? I was 10 years old, but it's true. I put Doug Goebel's D-I-C-K in my mouth. I was in 4th grade.
Sir, do you have a
was no
name of a
big
book
deal.
that was in our schools? I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's Lawn Boy.
Okay.
He sucked mine too, and you know what?
I don't know
It
that
wasn't
that's
terrible.
appropriate, sir.
It's not. That's
Right.
the point, of course. This is an elementary school. I had to spell those words out just so that, there's younger kids here. These younger kids are in elementary school, right? They can walk into the library anytime they want and pull a book off the shelf and read about somebody sucking somebody's D-I-C-K. There's other books. This is not just...
Sir, I'm just going to say it one more time.
Yeah.
If you say that again, I'm just going to shut the mic off. Okay? Thank you.
What are we doing about these kinds of materials in our schools? Is there, and I don't know, this is only my second meeting. I don't know if there's any kind of response here, but look, as a parent, I can't imagine even any of the parents in here we don't need this kind of material in our schools. There's some good stuff in schools. There's some bad stuff in schools. This is one of the bad things.
Ms. Grijalva, we are at the 20-minute mark.
Okay. Ms. Luna Rose, how many more people do we have in person?
1, 2, 3, 5.
Okay. We have several others. I think we have 1, 2, 3, 4 that wrote in, so we could read those later. So what would the board like to do? Because we still have our entire agenda other than call to the audience. Yes, Dr. Trujillo.
President Grijalva, board members, we have currently recessed the live stream and the audio, so none of the preceding comments made it out over the live stream of the video, and that's how we will proceed when we experience language that doesn't conform to the norms and expectations of what we've established here.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Trujillo. Okay, so board members, do we want to go on with the meeting? Or do we want to listen to the 5 that are here in person? Yes, Michelle.
Thank you. I would like us to extend the call to the audience.
So for the 5 people that are here in person?
The 5 present, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do I have a second? I'll second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay,
Aye.
Item passes 4-1. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Grijalva.
And then staff will make sure to send us all of the written comments from the rest of the members. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Next is Ms. Virginia Bichet.
I want to thank our state lawmakers for House Bill 2616 and our governor for signing this. It sickens me that I have to go through the process of contacting lawmakers to get choice in school. My parenting choices are not your parenting choices. My kids should be able to breathe, not be subjected to your silly rules. I'm a parent and taxpayer speaking on behalf of a group of parents and other taxpayers who would like to address several concerns. One immediate concern deals directly with a TUSD board member, Adelita. At the county board meeting, a community member was silenced. Adelita had the most immature, gleeful grin on her face after the mic was cut on this community member. Adelita ironically posted on social media about women not being silenced. This community member was a woman. You silenced a woman. You're a hypocrite. This type of treatment from a board member only alienates the board from the community and discourages the public from speaking out. Although this happened at the county meeting, her same behaviors crossed into the school board meeting. This is the representation you are now known for. We would also like to highlight the hypocrisy of some board members and the superintendent. TUSD's previous enforcement of mask mandates when they themselves attended various functions maskless throughout the time the mask mandate was in place. If your masks and vaccines worked, board meetings should have never been virtual. Although TUSD advocates internet for all, the reality is that live streamed option is not feasible for many of those who do not have internet access. Now that TUSD finally opened these meetings to in-person attendance, the public is currently subjected to a warrantless security checkpoint, which is in direct violation of the Fourth Amendment. There is no law or mandate that supersedes the U.S. Constitution. My purpose is to bring these concerns to the attention of the TUSD board for the betterment of our community and school relations. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Stephanie Kirk.
I, too, have been silenced at the Board of Supervisors as well as here. I was not allowed to
Ma'am,
come
can
in.
you not pull the mic because there's issues? Yeah, you don't have to hold it. Thanks.
Well, it's kind of high, so I need to put it where I can speak because the last time when the mic didn't fit, your whole group at the County Board of Supervisors cut me off. So, yeah. TUSD took bribes in the form of ARP ESSER 3 funds to mask kids to promote pop-up clinics on campus, quarantine, and conduct contact tracing. Taking away children's body sovereignty has not only resulted in an increased teen suicide, but also mass-related illnesses such as pleurisy, RSV, cellular acidosis, apoptosis. My inner circle has been touched by a teen suicide attempt. You have blood on your hands, TUSD School Board. In 1978, Ronald Reagan signed the H.R. 5546, which meant you can't hold the vaccine companies liable if you are hurt. You may be deemed comparable for a VIC, Vaccine Injury Compensation Program, that is through taxpayer funds. Did this school promote face masks, force face masks, vaccines for attendance? Because underneath 21 Federal Code of Regulations 5023 and 5024, it is illegal to participate in an experimental program using coercion. And I do believe to attend, that is, you guys made people wear masks to attend, so that is coercion. False Fauci claims that his booster business needs to be an essential part of the primary regimen of the people so his investments continue to soar. Peter A. McCullough was vice chief of internal medicine at Baylor University Medical Center and is currently the most respected and published cardiologist. In this study, there's evidence that vaccination induces a profound impairment of type 1 interferon signaling, which has diverse consequences to human health, which suppresses the type 1 and interferon responses. What does this mean? It impairs your innate immunity. This paper shows evidence that the VAERS database supporting the paper's hypothesis. A comprehensive risk-benefit assessment of the mRNA vaccines questions them as causing more harm than good. I have a few highlights, however, I am running out of time. I did want to point out that I have this lovely poster of Adelita's social media where she likes to post herself masked and unmasked. She likes to state that she tested with the PCR test. Was it the same PCR test that was pulled on the FDA and the CDC stating that it did not be able to test or distinguish the viruses? All I know is there was not choice given to these children at TUSD, like Miss Adelita likes to take as she goes and she rubs elbows with the elite who sit and state that global warming is a really big deal, but ride on their own giant airplane to come give hugs and kisses after your PCR testing.
Thank you for your time.
You bet.
Thank you. Next, we're going to hear from Jimmy Wells.
Thank you. It was just the holding and pulling. They IT doesn't like when we do that.
No problem. Hi. First, thanks for taking time. My name is Jimmy Wells. I'm a preschool teacher at Maldonado Elementary School. I'm a parent and a member of the Tucson Education Association. So, as a preschool teacher, I've really seen the impact the pandemic has had on our students and on our families. It's been profound, and I consider it my first responsibility to protect our students. As such, I think it's really vital that the board recognize the importance of the TUSD COVID-19 task force. I hope that we can use the current respite with infection rates and hospitalizations at a low point to better prepare ourselves for what may come in the future. Teaching through the pandemic has been consistently felt as if we were forced to fly by the seat of our pants without a clear preparation and long-term transparent thinking. That was particularly true for me during the winter months of this year, and it's had impacts on teacher and staff morale, family connection, and most importantly, the lives of our children, of the children that we teach and their families. So the TUSD COVID-19 Task Force offers the district a transparent plan for safer mitigation and includes a seat at the table for those that know our students best, the teachers and staff of each school. So I urge you to implement and continue to prioritize the health and safety of all by implementing the MOU. In addition, I just want to add that there's no health and safety without dignified wages for all staff in TUSD, which means I support the TEA bargaining committee and all ESPs, especially those in hard-to-fill positions. I know they play a vital role in our schools and deserve to be recognized for it with a dignified wage. This needs to be an urgent priority in the budget. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from Gage Stewart.
Good evening, board members. Good to see you all again. My name is Gage Stewart. I am a first-year teacher at Pueblo High School. I teach English. Very proud to teach there. Also a proud TEA member as well, Tucson Education Association. I'm here tonight to call on the board to implement the TEA TUSD COVID-19 Task Force and the implementation of the COVID-19 Health and Safety Committee MOU issued by the TEA Health and Safety Committee and the Building Action Team through TEA. I would also like to emphasize that this is not about masks. This is about being prepared to save lives. And this is about advocating for more than just mitigation and prevention strategies, but a seat at the table for decision making for our community and those who know our students best. I would also like to extend my gratitude to board member Sadie Shaw for motioning this, for the board to continue to talk about that. We see you. Thank you very much. And thank you for your support, Dr. Ravi Shaw. We really appreciate meeting with you and speaking about these issues and how we can move forward with the COVID task force. As we move forward and take steps to implement the task force and MOU, we ask that our remaining board members, sorry, I'm just going to move that a little bit more, continue to do the right thing and act with integrity on behalf of the health and safety of the TUSD community. This brings me to another crucial issue related to the economic health and safety of our communities, and that's salary and wage increases. I support our TEA bargaining team and all the ESPs, especially those in hard-to-fill positions that are demanding a dignified and thriving wage. It's time to pay us what we're worth. Salary should be talked about as an urgent need that TUSD needs to address to keep staff in the classroom. Salaries and wage increases need to be an urgent priority in this budget because the health and vitality of our school communities depend on us. It's time to respect us, it's time to protect us, and it's time to pay us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And our last speaker of the evening is Lisette Arbalo.
Maybe Arpaio.
Arpaio, sorry.
Arpaio.
Good evening, everyone. So much to say, so little time, so I'll get to the point. During the whole COVID lockdown thing, I had a lot of time on my hands, and I started reading a lot. I started learning about our city charter, and I started reading through our city charter, and I found some interesting things. One of the things I did find in our city charter, which is Chapter 8, Section 5. Let me read what it says. Mayor and councilmen not to hold other public office. No person holding any civil office of the city of Tucson, the county of Pima, the state of Arizona, or of the United States of America shall be eligible to the office of mayor, councilman, and the acceptance by mayor or any member of the council or any other civil office of the city of Tucson, the county of Pima, the state of Arizona, or the United States of America shall operate to vacate the office as mayor or councilman. As far as I'm aware, and to my recognizance, we have a school board member who is holding two political offices at the same time. And according to this, you should not be holding two political offices at the same time. That is hypocrisy. That is not right. And you know who you are. That person sits on the Board of Supervisors, and you are clearly breaking city charter. Another one of, I have so much to say, wow. Another one of the things I think, I'm hearing everybody talk about the masks, they're concerned for safety. They're concerned for safety, and I heard there was a comment from Janessa about mold. My husband is a business owner. He's actually working right now on the Tohono O'odham Reservation. He is installing 16 filtration systems into the HVAC systems at the Tohono O'odham Nation. This technology is new. I have the studies that we presented to Tohono O'odham Nation showing that this technology kills 99.9% of viruses, bacteria, molds, and airborne diseases and also reduces airborne allergies, seasonal allergies. I have this system implemented in my home, and with the amount of money TUSD got for ESSER funds, which is a total of $267.7 million, there's no need for the masks, the HIPAA filters. There's stuff already out there that works. This technology was invented by a person who I have sent you guys their information. I have sent you presentations on this man. He is a industrial hygienist by the name of Stephen Petty. If anybody has a chance, please look up his YouTube channel.
Thank you for your time. Your time has expired.
Thank you.
Okay. So that is the end of the call.
Yes.
I'll go ahead and close the call to the audience and ask if any board members wish to respond to a criticism made by anyone in the audience, wish to ask staff to review a matter, or ask that a matter be put on a future agenda. Okay, Dr. Trujillo.
Yes, I would like to respond. One of the speakers had a concern, passionately advocating for her family member that serves as a monitor. I just want to remind the community that this governing board took the unprecedented step to allocate $5.5 million towards decompressed wages. The formula will award 1% per year of service to those employees that find themselves in the situation described, where the starting salary rate for the position is either even with or exceeds what they're making after several years of service. So in the example of a 15-year employee making $13.50 an hour, and a new employee coming in at the same position making $13.50 an hour, that particular employee is going to see a 1% increase to their hourly salary per each year of service. So that is the formula that goes into effect July 1st. And of course, we look forward to making sure that our employees district-wide are aware of the compression package passed by this board and the formula that's going to award our most veteran employees that have experienced compressed wages. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to respond. A few speakers had a lot of attention directed to me, specifically this board meeting. It is absolutely legal for me to serve on the Pima County Board of Supervisors and this TUSD governing board. Robert Ross, who's our chief legal counsel, has sent us several communications because I continue to ask about it because it keeps getting brought up. Pima County and the city of Tucson are two completely different entities. The city charter does not affect Pima County. And so I'm happy to forward that information. I am not compensated in any way. And the criticism that I silenced somebody during the Pima County Board of Supervisors meeting, I really would like to encourage you all. I try to do it to keep these two boards separate. But since it was mentioned here at this board meeting, I am not the chair of that board. And so I don't get involved in the call to the audience. I'm not a part of that on that board. Okay, thank you very much. So now we will move on to consent agenda. Dr. Trujillo.
Ms. Grijalva.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Shaw.
Thank you. I just want to thank everyone who wrote in or spoke tonight, especially our educators. And also, I would like to add to a future agenda, again, the TEA, TUSD COVID Task Force, and hope that that will be placed on a future agenda sooner than later. I'd like to ask staff to review the matter outlined by Ms. Nigore, Ms. Altonis, Ms. Cheney, and also the staff from Tully. There was about 4 letters that kind of talked about the same thing. And also, in regards to the book at Fruchtindler, I know there's 2 books by that title. I'm not sure if the one at Fruchtindler is the inappropriate one, but I would like to ask staff to look into that, please.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Consent agenda. Dr. Trujillo.
Grijalva, members of the governing board, I'd like to formally pull item 6.5 from the consent agenda. We will re-agendize that for action for larger board discussion. Absent item 6.5, I'd like to recommend passage and approval of the consent agenda as arranged, items 6.2 through 6.10.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and move the remaining items.
Second.
So I have a motion. I move the item and Dr. Ravi seconds. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item passes unanimously. Now we are on to action items. 7.1, Administrative Appointment, Chief Financial Officer. Dr. Trujillo.
Yes, President Grijalva, members of the governing board, it is a privilege and with great enthusiasm that I recommend the appointment of not just an outstanding candidate, but one of the most seasoned, professional, and experienced veteran school finance officials in Pima County and the city of Tucson, who very confidently steered the county's finances with regard to its public schools from the helm of the Chief Financial Officer for the Pima County Superintendent's Office for over a decade. He is also a veteran of TUSD as a father, a parent, and an employee, and he currently served in our finance department prior to going to work for the Pima County Superintendent's Office. He has also served TUSD as an advocate, first serving on the Audit Committee and now most recently on the Budget Advisory Committee. I would like to proudly recommend Mr. Ricardo Hernandez to serve as the next Chief Financial Officer for the Tucson Unified School District.
I'll move the item.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item passes unanimously. Congratulations. Felicidades.
Long walk. Thank you. Dr. Trujillo, members of the board. Feels like homecoming. 20 years ago next February will be the first time I set foot in TUSD property as a data tech in the old bilingual education department. So it's interesting that in 20 years I've come full circle. In those 20 years, I met my lovely wife. My kids are TUSD students. So TUSD has definitely been a fabric of our family, of my life, and I am proud to serve its families. So thank you very much for the trust.
Stay there. Hold on. We're taking a picture.
I think
I
that's
will
a
say
first.
we will certainly do the
Like a
group picture
birthday
after
picture. Okay. Thank you very
we
much.
can certainly do the group picture after our other two appointments. So congratulations.
Now we're on item 7.2, Administrative Appointment, Principal, Wakefield Middle School.
Yes, our next hiring recommendation to the governing board is a very, very impressive, enthusiastic, and very energetic and dynamic leader. Very, very impressed with him watching the community forum. He comes to us from the Flowing Wells community, where he served Flowing Wells High School proudly as an assistant principal for 3 years and got the experience of working overseas in Greece before returning to Tucson, where he currently serves as MTSS coordinator at Hudlow. He is a proud Arizona native, and as I learned in his community forum video, a first-generation college graduate, and from, is it Bisbee? Proud native of Bisbee, Arizona. I'd like to recommend Mr. Joseph Torres to serve as the next principal of Wakefield Middle School.
Thank you. Board members?
I'll second.
You want to move the item?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll move.
I'll
Sorry, I'm
second.
so excited.
Miss Luna Rose moved the item. Miss Count seconds. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item passes unanimously. Congratulations.
Good evening. Members of the governing board, President Grijalva, Dr. Trujillo, I would like to say thank you, and that I'm incredibly grateful, honored, and humbled for this opportunity to join the Wakefield family. I'm beyond excited to begin my journey with the Wakefield family, and I would just like to express my gratitude. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, now we're on 7.3. I do want to say I wanted to thank Cameron Taravati, currently principal of Wakefield, that has been serving in that position and also serving as the principal of Hollinger. So I think he's done a really great job, and I'm sure that he'll be a great support to Mr. Torres. So thanks. Okay, item 7.3, administrative appointment, Principal Wheeler Elementary. Dr. Trujillo.
Yes, President Grijalva, members of the governing board. Tonight's recommendation, former principal out in the Altar Valley School District, where she also served as director for early childhood education before arriving in the district a few years ago, where she served as an assistant principal at University High School and currently serves as an assistant principal at Santa Rita High School, and is looking tonight to return to the principalship. And so we are going to recommend Rosalinda Rodriguez to serve as the next principal of Wheeler Elementary.
Okay, thank you. Board members?
I'll move.
Okay, Ms. Counts moved the item.
I'll second.
And Ms. Luna Rose seconds. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item passes unanimously. Congratulations. Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Good evening, Dr. Trujillo, Governing President Grijalva, and governing board members. I am honored to have been selected to serve the Wheeler Elementary community. I want to thank my current principal, Ms. Tamara Ray, who has shared a wealth of knowledge and has mentored me this year. I'm ready and committed to the next stage of my professional life with the Wheeler Elementary family. Gracias.
Thank you. Gracias. Felicidades. So now we're going to ask people to come up, take a picture. Okay.
Group photo.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Looking great. 3, 2, 1. Look up just a little. 3, 2, 1. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So, congratulations to all of our new appointments. Now, Dr. Trujillo, we're on 7.4, approval to increase Southwest Gas expenditures fiscal year 21-22.
Yes, President Grijalva, members of the governing board, as we leave the previous item, just a word of thanks and gratitude and appreciation to outgoing Wheeler Elementary School principal Dora Saldomando has done an amazing job leading that amazing community and increasing its enrollment and really pushing that school to the next level. If you haven't had a chance to stop by Wheeler and wish Dora the best, please do so. With that, we move to item. The next item is Southwest Gas. We do have a request on item 7.4 by Southwest Gas to increase or to charge the district a surcharge. Just as a note for the public and those watching, we did invite Southwest Gas representatives to address the board directly regarding this surcharge. They declined. So here to take us through this item is our team, Tina Cook, and then of course we have our operations leadership, Mr. Blaine Young, Mr. Greg Meyer. Team?
Good evening. There is not a presentation. So, good evening. Governing Board President, members of the board, Superintendent Dr. Trios, and district staff. I'm here today to ask.
Could we get you a little bit over to the mic?
There you go.
Thank you.
I'm here today to ask for an additional $700,000 for our Southwest Gas utility budget. For this particular year, it's been quite challenging. We've had not only a rate increase in which I did account for, but we've had some additional increases in usage. With an increase in usage, we are looking at running mechanical equipment 24/7 in order to increase the indoor air quality. As such, it not only affected the cooling, but it also went over into the heating as well. At the same time as that happened, we had some additional increases on the market for natural gas purchases, and it really hit like a double whammy, so to speak. And I'm here today to have to ask for additional funds for that budget. Like Dr. Trujillo said, we did ask Southwest Gas to come and explain what has happened on the open market, but they declined for today.
Okay. So President Grijalva's not here. Board members, any questions? I'll go down the line. We'll start with Dr. Shaw, and then we'll go with Ms. Shaw.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
There we go.
Does this surcharge apply to anyone else, any individual or large institution, or are they just putting it on TUSD?
No, it applies to residential and commercial straight across the board.
Thank you.
Dr. Shaw?
Thank you, Ms. Luna Rose. So what do we say no? What happens? What are the consequences?
We start turning off systems.
Okay.
Because you need the money in order to pay for the utility bills, so to speak. I mean, we just can't say no,
Okay.
so to speak. I mean, it is market driven, and we do need to keep everything running that uses the natural gas. So that's your heating. That's going to be your water heaters, some of your large mechanical equipment. So we really cannot say no to the price increase. The only thing we can do is request that Southwest Gas come back and talk to us and explain exactly what has happened on the open market to get a very clear picture of that. In my conversations with Southwest Gas, they have asked for no public meeting, but they've asked for written questions, and we do have those started. So we are working on that.
Okay. So it's not a negotiation back and forth.
No.
They came with the bill, and we're just talking about funding to pay for the bill.
And this is something that's unexpected. It's not that they had predicted it. This is purchase of natural gas on the open market, and we're set to actually probably even look at an additional one. So it's a real volatile market right now, straight across the board. And it doesn't just affect the natural gas. I mean, you're talking fueling. It goes over into your electric. It's going to probably affect your water. But at least with your electric and water, it's more strict with what those rate plans are set at, as opposed to some of the surcharges for the natural gas on the open market, which allows them to go ahead and get past that surcharge onto us.
Okay. I have, President Grijalva, thank you.
Yes, Ms. Luna Rose, go ahead.
Just out of curiosity, what was their reasoning for not wanting to come present or give us a breakdown? I mean, did they even send anything like a one-pager that said, this is why we're doing it?
Their main issue was they do not want a public meeting.
Okay. Well, I find that unfortunate because there's a longtime rep. He's a governmental relations rep, Mr. Richter, and I would like to see him here at the meeting to discuss why. I mean, if it's a bill we have to pay, it's a bill we have to pay, but I want to know if I'm getting a big increase at my house for $700,000, I want to know why, you know. And so, I mean, as stewards of the district, I mean, I think it's fair to ask why.
And I agree with you.
And this is an action item, so we all have to vote. And I don't know if our governing board feels like they have enough information in order to do that. Dr. Ravi.
What are the long-term implications? So we don't. This is not coming. This is a utility budget. It's a budget source on here. That's different than M&O. And what are the long-term implications year after year? Like we don't have this built in terms of our almost $1 million cost every year down the road. So what do we, I know this is a one-time request, was for to pay the bill for this year. I want to understand also what happens in the future.
This is a utilities request, so it's going to be paid on the capital side of the house. And as you know from the last presentation, the board's working with limited capital. Your number is, I think, just under $4 million left. So it's most definitely going to come out of that. Whether or not this is going to be a recurring expense, have we received that confirmation from Southwest Gas, or is this just right now because of current market conditions?
We have not received that confirmation, but they are right now in negotiating the next rate plan.
Okay.
And as such, if we do not see a reduction on the open market, it's going to continue.
I will say what we noted for Southwest Gas is we insisted on the public meeting because they're dealing with the public's money. This is not John Q. residential homeowner. You're taking $700,000 of the taxpayers' money for this district, and we at least wanted an explanation publicly of why the increase in rates. I would like to propose, just because I think we're in that position, that we get our answers to our questions in writing and inform Southwest Gas that we're going to be making public those answers in terms of before we ask our governing board members to vote on this. We would like to be able to at least discuss those responses in this public forum, so at least the public hears a rationale from them, even if they're not going to be here to answer the questions personally.
Okay, from a procurement standpoint, I would have to direct that over to Diane.
And Dr. Trujillo, one other question. This is a really large bill all of a sudden. Is there any way for us to pay that in installments if this board moves to authorize the payment? I don't know. I'm just, because we're dealing with a lot of limited capital. We don't have a lot of capital, and we had some plans for what we wanted to do with that, and it wasn't paying a big gas bill. Yeah.
President Grijalva, governing board members, Dr. Trujillo, Diana from purchasing, and as far as the utilities go, we don't do a procurement process. It isn't required under the Arizona procurement rules. Utilities are exempt because for us, Southwest Gas, we really don't have anyone else to compete it with in order to get better pricing. So we're kind of, like she said, we're locked into using what's in the area, and that's what's here. But I mean, I understand. We definitely want to get answers to the questions. We did want them to come and present or come and talk. So if they can answer questions in writing, and that you guys could look at it. I am suggesting that maybe we could look at what invoices we have that we need to pay currently, and other than to cover the entire amount through the end of the fiscal year, if we could at least bring to the board and have you, if we need to have you approve in installments, at least until you feel comfortable that yes, this is something that's going to be continuing. Just a suggestion for you guys to discuss.
Okay. Dr. Ravi.
I don't think we need to play a game like the installments and other things. I mean, we could pay a bill, we have a bill, but in terms of them not being here versus this is a regulated monopoly, and so we don't really have much of a choice. And we have state regulators of this monopoly, and I'm not sure if Southwest Gas doesn't want to join us, which I don't blame them. We have any of our elected regulators or unelected appointed regulators that regulate the gas market and allow them to be able to do this kind of surcharge, because I think it's not just them deciding this. This is approved by a governmental body before it even comes to us, from what I understand. And I might be mistaken in how it works with the regulated utility monopolies.
I would like to add something. When you're looking at the Southwest Gas bills, those have to be paid. Even if I bring back Southwest Gas to answer these questions, whether it be a private meeting or a public meeting, they will still have to be paid. So I'm kind of stuck on the choices with with other options, because there is no other utility vendor that provides the natural gas to us.
So I think a solution that could work. I'm very concerned about a almost $800,000 bill just being slapped on us, and we get no context. We get no. Is it the war in Ukraine? Is it a shortage of natural gas? Is it the supply chain issue? Is it staffing? We don't know. I would propose that we at least get the answers to their questions in writing, not asking them again to come here, but I think we need to make it known that what they answer is going to be read and discussed publicly. I think before we ask the public body here to vote for almost $800,000. That way, at least the public understands what it is that, number one, we're being asked to vote for, the board's being asked to vote for, and the why, in terms of why all of a sudden it's $700,000, $800,000. So that's what I think would help the situation.
It would, and I think we've got a really good start with the questions to them that would answer a lot of the questions.
Is this something we could tackle maybe in May? Is there a time sensitive, we have to have this bill paid, or is it just by the end of the fiscal, which is
No,
June 30th?
we receive 2 summary bills a month.
Okay.
One of those bills has roughly about 50 accounts on it. The other one has roughly about 350 accounts on it. So it's something that is paid monthly. So we would need a portion of the funds in order to get us through until they come and answer the questions.
So like if we talked about a May 10th meeting, I mean,
Yes.
is it this time sensitive where we owe them money prior to May 10th?
Yes.
Do we owe them the whole balance?
No, because the $700,000 that I had estimated
Okay.
was based up through June 30th. So it is not the whole balance that is needed.
Okay, we just don't know what the specific.
Correct.
Okay.
President Grijalva?
Yeah, Ms. Luna Rose.
Just out of curiosity, just because I don't know, how much on average do we ballpark an entity like that, a utility, for monthly bills?
It depends on the time of year. During the winters, they're going to range anywhere from about $150,000 to $200,000. Over December, January, that bill in itself was typically a $200,000 a month bill, and it came in at over $400,000.
Okay.
It's very significant.
Ms. Shaw.
Thank you. I just think this is really unfortunate that we're going to have to put so much money towards this, and that money could go to our schools. And so I wonder if we can reach out to Southwest Gas and see if they would consider giving us a discount or possibly freeze our rates for not only TUSD, but all schools in Pima County, so that those dollars can stay in schools.
We can add that question to the list.
Thank you.
Okay.
So this item will come back on May 10th?
Yeah, I would suggest come back on May 10th.
Okay, and then do you need any authorization for a portion in order to pay it?
I believe so. And that's where I would. You're not sure? Okay.
I think the board's comfortable with you paying the portion that you need to before the 10th,
Okay.
right?
If I was doing an estimate right now, just off the top of my head, I would almost say half of it, $350,000.
Okay, do you want us to vote on that? It's an action.
Given this information, I think we just need to vote this item now. I don't want to be in a situation where we are running short on the cash. I don't want to be in a situation where our operations team just doesn't have the information. I'm just very disappointed in Southwest Gas and their communication with us and their handling of this situation. I still think there's value in getting their questions and at least coming back and saying, this is why we had to pay this.
It's a significant amount of money. And, we're talking about some of the capital improvements that we had to push off, and this would have covered that. So I know that it's not anyone is comfortable doing it, but I don't know if we have a motion to
I'll
go
make
ahead.
the motion.
I'll second.
Okay, so I have a motion and a second.
And I'll just say, I echo along with Dr. Trujillo and the other board members that I'm very disappointed, but it seems like we don't have a choice in this. So that's why
very frustrating.
I'll be voting yes.
And I can also
Yes,
say,
Dr. Ravi, go ahead.
I appreciate the responses. I'm not sure. We have such valuable meeting time. I think using the time for other items as opposed to bringing this back.
Yeah.
I think we talked about it. We'll have the hopefully responses, and that can be shared with the governing board via blind carbon copy, so we can at least understand the process better.
Okay.
Yeah.
And any, if there are any elected representatives that we can reach out to, I think if we can get that list, that would be helpful. Any other comments? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Item passes 4-1. And I would also have liked to oppose. because I think all of us would have liked those. And so it was moved by Dr. Ravi and seconded by Ms. Counts. Okay, thank you. All right, and
Thank
Ms. Shaw voted against the item. Okay, so now we are on study action TUSD. Oh, we already did 8.1. Now we're on 8.2, governing board policy GCAA application for position first reading.
Ms. Grijalva, we covered just the Dr. Cullen's portion 8.1, but we didn't really cover a lot of the other
Oh,
issues
okay.
in 8.1, so I wasn't sure if we were skipping the rest of this, because I had some questions and had a
Dr.
motion. and some other things.
8.1 is return. Yeah, we covered Dr. Collins' portion.
Oh, it
of
was just her
8.1.
portion, and then there's more to the item. Okay.
Which
So
was the info portion of the item. So, but now we'll bring
Okay, so we are on 8.1.
item 8.1, which is half done. So now
Yes.
we'll go right into the district level information with regard to 8.1.
All right, thank you.
Okay,
Sorry
Leslie.
about
Good evening. Excuse me. Good evening, President Grijalva, Board Clerk Luna Rose, board members, Dr. Trujillo, and guests. As we discussed earlier, Dr. Cullen already shared much of the information, but I will talk about some of what we've been doing as far as the reporting in the district. So, Jean, if you'll go to the next slide, thank you. So far, our pool testing has continued to show very low number of positive pools in the district. It kind of bounces up and down depending on the week, but very few positive cases. We are still having close to 5,000 people individually test throughout the district, so that is good. That's sustained its numbers. And our prevalence rate through the pool testing is 0.24%. It is inkling up just slightly, but is still very low compared to where we were back in January and February. Next slide. So as you can see, this is from the CDC. So across the country, most of the country is at low community spread, which is great. So next slide. And in Pima County, as Dr. Cullen had suggested, we are at low community spread as well. We have seen that our positivity rate has moved up, so we are now at 4.48% community spread, whereas positivity rate, whereas a few weeks ago we were close to 2.5. So it is inching up slightly. Next slide. Pima County's website, when I did this, was not in alignment with the CDC, but again, we're still at low spread, so there's not a concern there. And I think that's the last slide. Next slide. Yes. So any questions, very quick and short, since considering where we are in the district.
Board members, any questions? Dr. Shaw.
All right, I have a couple of questions and then a motion eventually. For my first question is about our pool testing. Like, how long is our contract with Concerta or Concentra, excuse me, and what is the plan moving forward for either continue or not continuing pool testing in our schools after the school year is over?
Sure. So I've had a number of conversations with the Concentric leadership team. At this point, they've guaranteed that we will continue pool testing through summer school, so through June. So we're coordinating that effort right now, so that over the next few weeks, as we get family members and kind of get a complete registration by each school, we'll send out a reminder that if they're interested in pool testing, that they'll be able to do that every week at the schools. At this point, Concentric does not know if they will be doing pool testing next year. It's part of a federal contract as well as Arizona state contract. So that's still up in the air at this point.
It seems like there'll be a lot of staff time, especially with going into summer school and new registrations and kind of reconsenting everyone for that. Are we sure this is necessarily worth the staff time to do pool testing over the summer?
Right, so no one has to reconsent if they're already in the pool testing. We just would open it up to anyone else who might want to participate, and that we would, as we do today in all the schools, we vary what time they come in. They're very consistent when they come in. It takes about 15 minutes for the classroom to go through the testing, depending on how many people you have in that school that are consented to test. So we wanted to give the option. If you all feel that it wouldn't be worthwhile, that certainly we can make change that decision.
Other board members? I just want to say, Ms. Leinhardt, that I really appreciate your daily reports, and I really like seeing the zeros. I mean, that's
Yes, we
that's
all do.
that's good.
Agreed.
I'm wondering though, just in terms, and thank you for asking that question about the pool testing, because I actually had the same thought. But my other question is, do we have parents that are still, have they been contacting their children's schools about how many cases, or has there been any interaction there?
I have not heard of any concerns from parents on the number of pool tests or what type of positivity rates. And nothing has come to me personally.
Okay. Dr. Shaw.
Is there any feedback from leadership about, whether this is a burden going into the summer? Because if there's some feedback that it is, then we can consider not doing this for the summertime. But if it just seems like it's just kind of a smooth process into the summer, then we can step away and let the leadership take that on for the pool testing.
Well, our recommendation is to write out the funding. And as long as the county is continuing to receive funding from ADHS to implement the pool testing, I think we just ride that out. And if that takes us into the summer, it takes us into the summer. And I think we just kind of take advantage of the free resource at this particular point, make the decision a little bit later in fall when the funding source runs out.
Right, right. And we still have and can get from ADHS any tests that we need to put in the schools, because that's part of the concentric program. So that's an advantage to us, even though I know Pima County has them. They're much more readily available in large quantities from ADHS and concentric.
Okay. Other board members? Any questions? Dr. Shaw, go ahead.
I'll defer to others if others have them, but I don't want to monopolize the time. I do have a motion for us to consider for tonight. And I appreciate TA coming through in a number of meetings, a number of discussions, really help support the work moving forward of making sure we have the policies and guidelines we need to be successful in the next year. I think right now we're doing a victory lap, which is great. We should enjoy the moment that we have with the low numbers, with just where we stand with COVID management at this time. But we don't know what next year is going to look like. We saw with Omicron that even many of those who were vaccinated did have infections. Hopefully they were milder and less significant. Hopefully there was some mitigation of transmission. But we know there was a lot of breakthrough infections. We know that immunity is probably going to wane from natural immunity for those who were infected after hopefully a very smooth spring and summer and early fall before we get into our normal flu and cold cough season. So we expect that. We don't know what to expect. We have no clue what to expect next year, and we don't want to say that we're done with this moving forward. And we might have other infectious diseases or communicable diseases that come, whether it's a bad flu season or a bad norovirus, causing GI illness, or other things that run amok, through our pediatric populations here and, of course, in our schools. And so I'm proposing the creation of a communicable disease task force. And I'm asking for the governing board to approve a task force made up of educators and health staff in conjunction with our unions, site leaders, external public health professionals, appointed by and reporting to the TUSD superintendent, which will review and create district policies and guidelines to ensure they apply best practices in managing future infectious disease outbreaks in our schools, including testing and identification of cases, outbreaks in our schools, communication strategies internally with parents, students, and externally, implementing best public health practices to mitigate local spread, including air quality, surface cleaning, quarantine, and isolation expectations, reporting and partnering with public health bodies, vaccination, and more. Expectation is for a written report to the superintendent shared with the governing board and presentation to the governing board by the first quarter of the 22-23 school year.
Thank you, Dr. Ravi. So what I would really like to make sure that this, if this passes and this task force is able to work on this, is to make sure that our schools understand, just like when we discussed it in the graph that we all passed, where if there's a certain number or if there's X number of students out or X number of teachers out. I think one of the things that I heard fairly clearly from a lot of my friends who are in our schools is we want to make sure that we learn from what happened in December and and set up some systems in place. And so I feel like we've had a good conversation at the governing board meetings, but again, not everyone is here. Not everyone listens to the meetings. I can understand why sometimes, but not everyone just sits there and listens to endless hours of us talking. And so I'd like to make sure that it's really clear. So just the same way the graphic that we passed was like, this is where we are, it would be the same thing. And helping our sites to understand what autonomy different principals have. And so when we had certain schools that were really impacted, hindsight being 2020, what can those principals and sites do different than the rest of the district if they're like negatively impacted? And if we're talking about any kind of outbreak, I mean, obviously we're not just talking COVID, we're talking, influenza and other things that are cropping up in some of our schools. So as long as the report, I don't think it has to be explicit, but I'd like it to sort of very succinct and kind of read of, when this happens in our campuses, if and when, this is what the plan is. And I think that's what you were asking for as well, right?
Right. I think there's a
Dr.
lot of
Robbins?
work to do. There's a lot of lessons learned from this year, and I don't want to go into next school year, really without being prepared with just good guidance and guidelines and some policies in place that can be implemented effectively.
Okay. Ms. Counts?
Yeah, I'll second for the sake of discussion. So what is the expectation of this task force? Are they going to be giving the board a quarterly report? Is this an annual report? Is it, are they just called upon when needed? Is this an ongoing superintendent committee? What is this?
Right, the intention of the motion here is a one-time task force to be completed its work by the first quarter of the next school year. And this is on Microsoft Word, so if there's any amendments to this motion exists, it's going to be edited as we go tonight.
Okay, so it's just this one-time report of recommendations and, okay. Sounds
Like an ad hoc, does that, right?
Right. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just like we need them now, and then it's not going to be a forever committee.
Okay.
Is that what you understand, Dr. Trujillo?
That's what I understood from the motion.
If I could just add to this, and this is not part, obviously, of the official motion, but just that we really do look at ongoing epidemics that we struggle with every year, and kids have learning loss around. So partnerships, I know, with El Rio for flu shots and with Pima County Health Department. So if we can really look at how I was really happy to see that we had flu shot clinics not this past year, but the year before. And just to keep that in mind, and if that can be a part of this somehow, that TUSD has a commitment to ongoing immunization clinics in our schools.
The Pima County Health Department is adding flu to all of our pop-ups. So the one at Wakefield last weekend had flu and COVID.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that they would be willing to kind of whatever the need is.
Yeah.
Which I think would be great.
If we could have something scheduled, that there's this annual flu clinics at all of our health centers or whatever. So something that's easy for parents and accessible.
Okay.
President Grijalva?
Yes.
Actually, Dr. Shaw. So what, and thank you for bringing this forward. I really appreciate being able to read it and really get a sense of what this task force would look like. What is your vision and how many times they would meet? I know Ms. Grijalva said an ad hoc, but when would you want to get this started?
If passed tonight, it goes into the hands of Dr. Trujillo to put it together and work with our unions to find the staff and members, and work with our community to find some public health experts to join in as well. So hopefully as soon as possible. And the work can be completed before the first quarter. That's great to have some more information as we get into the school year, but I don't want to rush things knowing that summer was coming up.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So, Ms. Shaw.
Thank you. I'm happy to see this get so much support. I know I tried to pass a similar motion not too long ago and it wasn't seconded, but happy it is being discussed now. I am a little concerned that, TEA has proposed a TEA-TUSD COVID task force, and it seems that this is kind of including a lot of their desires that they laid out, but I was looking forward to seeing a presentation by them about what they believe that they need in a task force. Also concerned that a superintendent's committee that reports to the superintendent, that we're going to be left out, and perhaps, information that is time sensitive, we're not going to be able to react as soon as we could. I would prefer this to be a board committee so that the public can listen in, and they could also report at every board meeting about the situation around our district. And so I would like to amend this to be a board committee instead of a superintendent's committee, which it seems to be in the language.
So Dr. Robbie, I think you would have to either agree to incorporate that into your motion, or there could be a substitute motion.
Well, I can't change the motion because it's not mine anymore as a board since it was seconded. So
Right.
it looks like Ms. Shaw is asking for an amendment to it, and so it requires a second.
I have a question. I wasn't aware that there was such thing as a board task force. Is there a way that we could even do that?
For clarification, when the board appoints a committee, board-appointed committees, you only have a few of them. You've got technology oversight committee, you've got audit committee, right? They're subject to the same open meeting law parameters that you are.
Yeah.
As a board.
But not for we've never had a task force as this one-time thing.
We have not had a
Yeah.
task. Now, we've had association leaders meeting with us the whole way through,
Mm-hmm.
throughout the mitigation time period, but never getting a collective group of people, a mixed group of people from.
So I guess my question is, logistically, how would this be a task force of the board?
It actually becomes a superintendent's committee that reports to the governing board. And will
Okay.
meet the governing board's deadline.
So then
outlined
it
in this
changes
motion.
it from a task force ad hoc to a committee.
It's
Is
a
the only
committee
way-
slash task force.
Okay.
It's not, what it's not is a governing board appointed committee right now.
Okay. So, Ms. Shah, is your amendment to have governing board members appoint?
My amendment is to have this so-called task force be a board-appointed committee so that the public can view the meetings, and we would get updates sooner than a superintendent's committee.
Okay,
sooner
so
than we could.
We have a sort of a motion kind of on the floor. And so I want to make sure that, do we have a second before we continue to discuss? Okay. So the motion dies to change this to a governing board committee, for lack of a second. My concern is I don't think this committee has to report to us on a regular basis. The way this motion reads, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we're going to put together the plan. We're going to look at all of these. We're going to look at all of the bullets. We're going to put together a plan so it's really clear that what every school has the authority to do, what the superintendent's going to do, what the district's going to do, should we have an outbreak. So I don't necessarily think that at this point we need regular updates from a group. I mean, we can get updates from our superintendent. I don't think that putting together a committee is necessarily going to be faster resolution. I mean, for us to get that information to the board, I don't think that would happen any quicker necessarily, because all of our committees still have to work through our board office. They still have to, we have to have minutes. I mean, it's a pretty complicated process, more complicated, I think, if it's a governing board committee versus a superintendent's committee. That's why we have so few of them. Okay.
Ms. Grahova?
Yes, Michelle.
Thank you. Once again, this is a matter of public health. Public health is the public should know about a public health task force. So I don't understand why we are going to obscure the work of this committee or task force, and I just don't understand why we can't do that. I think the public we still have an item every board meeting about COVID. And this isn't just COVID, it's a communicable disease task force. So it's not just COVID, it's really any illness that is going around the district. And I just think our agenda item can benefit from like a group of people keeping a closer eye on things, not just like numbers, you know what I mean, but kind of a little bit of an explanation of what's happening around the district.
Okay, any other comments? All right, I have a motion and a second. Can I get a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Shaw?
Aye.
Ms. Counts?
Yes.
Ms. Luna Rose?
Yes.
Dr. Ravi?
Yes.
Ms. Grijalva?
Yes, item passes unanimously. Thank you. Now we're going to move on.
Oh, before we move
Oh,
on,
wait, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
With the same topic, I'm not sure if there's a motion required, but I appreciate the biweekly discussions that we get on COVID mitigation. I think for a while that we'll be we're in a low transmission rate and things aren't changing on a regular basis. And I'll be open for our regular topic to be more ad hoc as opposed to required to be a standing item on the agenda every single time and come into the agenda when items arise or new information comes up to present to the governing board.
Yeah, Dr. Trujillo, do you have the impression that it's a standing item on the agenda, or you've placed it as a standing item in order to provide updates? Because I don't recall, I mean, again, I don't remember the governing board saying, we need you to put this on all the time.
There was never a formal vote.
Right.
Yeah,
I didn't think so either.
Yeah, in the throes of the pandemic, it was a very informal. We need to see this every meeting.
Absolutely.
So we're just operating off a direction. So we can say, but we'll bring it back as requested by the governing board.
And we'll still get the reports from Ms. Lenhart on how many
Yes.
cases we have, and if any board members have a concern that you want to have addressed, it can come back. Or if you feel like there's an update, Dr. Trujillo, that you want to share.
Absolutely.
Okay. I don't know I mean, it was by form of direction, and so I don't know.
I can't remember if it was a vote or it was a...
It wasn't a vote. It was more like we really need information every meeting, like finance.
And that can just be direction back as opposed to a motion then. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so. Does anyone have any feedback?
I think
Yeah.
we should keep it on
Michelle.
the agenda.
Okay. All right, so you can talk to, I think you hear.
Okay.
A majority of us are sort of.
And President Grijalva,
Ms. Luna-Rose.
real quickly, I just want to thank again Ms. Lenhart for all her work on those COVID reports and presentations and PowerPoints. I know that, on top of everything else, and really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep. They've been helpful. Thank
And I'll
you.
echo that too. I think every week I was sending back feedback. Please present it this way and that way. And there was constant updates through the fall through Delta. So thank you, Ms. Leinhardt. And thank you to TA for really advocating on making sure we don't drop the ball and that we're not done with this pandemic and other outbreaks in the future. And I appreciate all that feedback from membership of TA that really helped propel us to really think not just what's happening today when things are calm, but really what's going to be happening in the next school year and beyond. So thank you for pushing us on that.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. So now we are on 8.2 Governing Board Policy GCAA application for position. First read. Dr. Trujillo.
Yeah, I'm going to turn things over to our Associate General Counsel. Mr. Ross is in a nationwide conference for special education law.
Okay.
So we will turn the proceedings over to Mr. Aronoff, our Associate General Counsel.
I think he needs an extra.
Thank you. Okay. So GCAA is a pretty small change as the board knows, if we are ever in the position of terminating a certified teacher or administrator, we have to adopt in public a statement of charges. And we wanted to clarify in this policy that during the time between adopting a statement of charges and it being final, right? That, you know, teachers have a right to a hearing. Even if they don't ask for a hearing, it's not sort of final until 10 days after adoption. So until in that interim period when that document is public, we want it to be clear in our policy on employee references that if someone calls us and asks for a reference on that teacher, that we are able to share information from that public document. It was sort of vague before, and so we thought adding this language would make it clearer and you know, and protect both the board and you know, and anybody calling for references, so that we can provide information which is, as I said, already public information. So this is just to kind of close that gap. It is, as Dr. Trejo said, I think just a first read on this policy, so it would go up for public comment.
Board members? Any questions or concerns? So if we pass this item, then it would go out for the public comment. Okay, I'll go ahead and move the item.
I'll second.
That motion and I moved and Ms. Count seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item passes 4-0. Okay, now we are on 8.3, Governing Board Policy JQ, Student Fees, Tax Credits, Fines, Charges, Revisions. First reading. Mr. Ernoff.
So this change is, we added a section here on undesignated tax credit contributions. This is based on a statutory change having to do with tax credit contributions which are designated for a certain purpose, which are either unspent for a period of time or whose purpose effectively you know, has been discontinued, right? You donate money designated for the school's chess club, and chess club is discontinued. What happens to that money? So the statute is clear that that money becomes usable by the school basically as though it were undesignated. The one thing which is not statutorily required but consistent with the aim of the statute is that money that is designated for standardized testing fees will be considered basically undesignated at the close of the school year, so that if I donate money to my child's high school to pay for their SAT fees, for my child's SAT fees, and they either don't take it or it's not used, we don't have to wait 2 years for that money to become freed up. We treat that again as undesignated at the end of that testing year. And again, this is going up for first read and will be there for public comment.
Okay, so just to be clear then, this is only if whatever program they donate to is discontinued for some reason.
Exactly. The statute's still, right, the goal is still if you donate money for designated for a particular use, we're gonna use it for that. The statute is meant to protect against situations when we can't use it for that. We don't want that money to become tied up in limbo. So the legislature has freed that up so we can use it for other purposes.
So if let's say I donate to a basketball, one of the programs, and they don't use it that year, this doesn't have any effect on that because the program will start next year, and so it can just sort of stay in the fund as long as the activity is available to students.
Or if the money is not used for 2 consecutive years, that money would also become undesignated. But in a situation like a basketball program, which is constantly using the funds, it's unlikely to happen that way.
Okay. Dr. Ravi.
How about those like 8th grade trips? I know they start saving like in 6th grade for those, and that's going to be more than 2 years later. Like, how would that work for those saving for those 8th grade field trips and other things?
It's an excellent question. I think for our purposes, we would probably continue to designate it, right? The idea here is to free it up so that it's not stuck in limbo. If we have a particular purpose that they're working towards, I think we would continue to keep it towards that purpose as a practical matter.
So we don't have to undesignate it. This gives us an
Correct.
option to. So if all this money is there for next year's field trip, then nothing's going to happen to it. Don't worry.
Right.
It's not a requirement. This is an option if there's program's no longer there or doesn't need it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Right. All right. Any other questions? I'll go ahead and move the item.
Second.
Dr. Ravi seconds. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Item passes unanimously. Now we're on item 9.1, TUSD preschool before and after school childcare program update, school year 21-22. Dr. Trujillo.
Yes, President Grijalva, members of the governing board. This is part 2 of the early childhood programming update. Started at the previous meeting, and we, of course, rescheduled this one, which was a general overview of preschool programming and the availability of before and after school care for this year, what some of the trends have been, what some of the challenges have been, and just some very, very general recommendations. I will say that administratively, we're working on the recommendations, and that's a later presentation in May, specifically regarding what you may see regarding recommendations for job description changes and, of course, KidCo expansion. With that, I'll turn it over to Mrs. Kivet.
Good evening, Board President Grijalva, distinguished board meetings, board members, Dr. Trujillo, and legal counsel. I'm going to provide for you an update regarding our department. Next slide, please. So we will be reviewing where we are, trends in enrollment, staffing challenges, PD provided for the school year, our quality first expansions, and again, recommendations for next school year. Next slide. So this is an overview and reminder of where our preschool programs are across the district. The highlighted sites are sites that are closed due to staffing shortages. They have not been reopened or opened since the pandemic started. Next slide, please. So there's been a couple small updates since I posted this presentation, but for our PEEPS programs, the preschool expansion through Pima County, we will have 4 out of our 8 classrooms as of today. We have teachers hired. We have 4 out of our 8 teacher positions filled. And 5 out of our 11 TA positions filled. So we now have a TA for Borton and for Cabot. So we're really excited that those were just recently filled. I will say that BC continues to be one of our hardest sites to recruit and hire for. I believe that has to do with their location. The principal has been very patient and is working collaboratively with us in hopes that we can open a program there. We know the families are very interested. There's a need to serve those families. So we hope that we'll be able specifically to fill that school with a preschool program. Our goal is to have 2 TAs in every program. However, if we have 1 teacher and 1 TA, we can fill the classroom to capacity and enroll all students. If we have only a teacher and no TA, we would probably only enroll about 10 out of our 18 students that we can enroll. So we really, really want to do our very best to at least have 1 teacher and TA for each one of these programs. Next slide, please. This is for our inclusive preschool programming. So currently SUL unfortunately has been added as of recently as a general ed certified classroom that also needs a teacher. So we have 5 teachers that we need to to fill positions for, and we currently have 78 positions vacant. This is very, very high for this section of our department. These are usually very stacked after. I will say, unfortunately, we've lost a lot of our TAs and specifically general ed TAs to positions within the district that pay $15 an hour, where we're still at minimum wage. So this has been quite hard-hitting for us. Next slide.
Can I ask a question about that specific slide?
Sure.
So I had a meeting with Pima County, the preschool program, and they mentioned that some of the other schools are working to use their funding to kind of help bridge that. Is that something that we can do in our district with that funding?
So we've tried multiple different avenues. I think one of the biggest barriers we're hitting is that the PEEPS programs that are funded in that way through Pima County, and these inclusive preschool programs that are funded through Title I, they have the same job titles. So if I give an increase to and use the PEEPS funding, which we're able to do for those teachers and TAs, I would have to be able to give it to everybody. And I can't, I don't have the Title I budget to do that.
Okay.
So that's a barrier that we've hit recently. We're now talking about maybe creating a new and different job title so that we can at least do it for the PEEPS programs and recruit, but I don't have the funding to do that. There's going to be about a 12% cut in Title I funding that we believe is going to be happening for next school year. So if I have a budget where I'm going to have to work with less in Title I to fund these, I won't be able to increase their pay.
So Dr. Trujillo, can you work with Reem to give us an amount, like what it's going to cost out of our budget in order to address this? Because this, I know that we're looking at some other job classifications that are sort of in this position.
Yeah.
And I know that part of the problem is you know, you have exceptional education TAs, you have TAs, and then you have the preschool ones. And so I'm just trying to.
We're going to have a
get an idea.
proposal coming for May 10th.
And so this classification is included?
Well, this is one that we're looking at. I will say that in our best efforts to address a critical shortage of ex-ed parapros, what happened is when we raised those rates, we started to see the migration of general education parapros over into ex-ed, which is great, starting to fill those ex-ed critical spots. But guess what happened? Lots of vacancies in the regular general ed TA. So that's part of the challenge that we're going to be trying to solve with our May 10th proposal.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. So this is an overview of our inclusive and PEEPS enrollment. PEEPS are new. So we opened 3 classrooms this school year and served 34 students. We had 423 students on a wait list. So we had a lot more interest than we had slots available. A lot of these classrooms opened with just a teacher, so we weren't able to fill to capacity and at different times along the school year. We're going to be able to open up next school year with 4 programs for sure as of today, and with more teaching assistants hired as well. So we should be able, with our 4 programs opening with 1 teacher and TA so far, at least 72 students. And so if we are able to open up our other 4, then obviously we would double that. So we're better off today than we were in August, and I'm very hopeful that we continue on this path. Typically, we have 1,600 students enrolled in our inclusive preschool programs. And pre-COVID, in our inclusive wait list, we had generally about 1,000 students on our wait list. So we are serving about 600 less students than we typically do, and have about only 400 students on our wait list. Again, this is a huge hit to our department and to our programming. You will see that we take note of people who withdrew or declined and or just never responded to our calls for placement. But the biggest reason was just fear, because of the pandemic and the unknown. And so we are starting to slowly see an uptick in our wait list, and we're hoping that it will get back to where it was. Next slide. This is our tuition pre-K programs and before and after school. Banks, Denham, Marshall, and Miller are the 4 sites that we were not able to reopen since COVID started. Many of these programs were closed, and over the year we've been able to rehire or hire and reopen many of the programs, but those 4 we still haven't had any viable candidates or applicants. We literally check almost every day or every other day because we are so, I hate to use the word desperate, but we also don't want to just put a body into any room. We want to make sure that we have qualified people who will, provide a quality program. Again, this is just a reflection of our staffing shortage, and our hope continues to be that people will be returning to the workforce, and we can reopen these 4 programs, if not more. Our current enrollment in our before and after school and tuition programs right now, as of today, based on these numbers, is about half of what we used to serve in our community, and we have about 40 staff out of the 74 we had pre-COVID. Next slide, please. On a brighter note, we have been able to provide what I think is some of the best professional development in the district. I'm very proud of my team and all that they do and provide for our teachers, and we constantly get a lot of positive feedback. We implemented the TEL curriculum in our inclusive preschool programs. It was very difficult. It was new. It was during a very stressful time. There was a lot of compliance, and our teachers really persevered. And so through this partnership and through receiving this free curriculum, we participated in a study, and they received anywhere between 16 to 41 professional development hours and then some coaching. And so we will continue that work in the next couple of years within our own department and with our own curriculum service providers. Next slide. In addition, our CSPs and coordinators help develop a preschool catalog for all the all-day PD and services that were provided for the school everyone in the school district. We received, again, a lot of positive feedback about how well they were organized and how they were relatable, and that we were able to provide a variety of topics for people to participate in. Some of those topics include pre-K gardening, using text to support social emotional development, classroom environments, coming together through COVID, differentiated instruction, STEAM, honoring diversity, etc. And then we had our CSPs, program coordinators, and I also provided professional development to our ILCs, tuition preschool programs, and before and after school staff. And so those topics also included differentiation, data to inform instruction, classroom environments, curriculum and kit implementation, conscious discipline, anti-bias education, and really so much more. Again, this is an area we're very proud of and feel we do very well based on feedback we receive. Next slide. We are also really excited that First Things First has granted both North Pima and South Pima regions extra funding to help early childhood programs to participate in Quality First. And so what this means for us is that all our preschool programs are now part of the Quality First programming in Tucson. This provides us additional incentives to purchase materials for classrooms, monthly coaching to our teachers, additional professional development. We get to advertise our programs through their website, which showcase our star ratings, and then we're able to provide tuition family scholarships to families who have a financial need. Next slide. This is a overview of our star ratings. The ones that are pending is because they are waiting to be assessed still. It's something they go through, I believe, every 2 years. We are proud to share currently that all our TUSD preschool programs are rated at the quality level, and that through this pandemic, our staff continue to demonstrate their hard work and dedication throughout what is a very rigorous process. It is not easy. It is stressful. There is a lot of work, and they continue to persevere and just showcase the amazing work that they do with our students, and we are very proud of them. Next slide, please. So this is a quick overview of what we feel are our needs and recommendations, and it primarily is around expanding childcare access to all families. And most families just cannot afford childcare. Recruitment for staff for our current after-school programs is difficult. We have part-time positions, so people have to often work split shifts. They don't qualify for benefits. It's a part-time gig. The hours are very restrictive. So we need a full-time position that is benefit eligible, and that's something that we are collaborating with Dr. Trujillo and our HR department in creating and developing, and we're very excited about that and hope to have updates at another time for more information. We also really do need to move to a $15 an hour positions to help recruit when it's already happening, not only in all sorts of sectors, but within our district. And so many principals have called our department and called me specifically over the last couple of years, desperate for ways to provide free or reduced cost childcare, and wanting to know if there's a way to supplement costs for parents. So this is really important. And of course, we can't do it alone. We will need to continue our KidCo partnership and do this as a team. And we really believe that this will improve the overall enrollment and have a positive impact on retention and recruitment for the district. Next slide. That concludes my presentation. What questions do you have for me?
Hey, board members, Ms. Counts.
Thank you, Ms. Kiewit. It was a great presentation. If we can go to the slide of inclusive preschool program staffing vacancies, the teacher update, and then the TA update. So my question is, if these are inclusive preschools, it seems like that the TAs would all be ex-ed TAs. Is there a reason why we have general ed TAs instead of ex-ed TAs, or could we change that?
Yes. So currently we have, they could all generally be ex-ed TAs. One of it was created that way, obviously, before I came on board, but it is my understanding that we have a continuum of services. So we have ex-ed funded teacher and TA positions. So all the ex-ed funded positions come from the ex-ed department, and then we are responsible for the Title I pays for the general ed teachers and TAs. And it was like this before we became inclusive. Then we became inclusive, but even then we have a continuum of services where students with higher needs and IEPs that need to be served all day to meet their IEP needs instead of, let's say, by an itinerant teacher. Those teachers in classrooms do have some of the more students with a higher need and an additional adult in that classroom. So our ex-ed classrooms, funded classrooms, have one teacher and two TAs, and our general ed or inclusive Title I funded have one teacher and one TA. And so that helps us make sure their IEP needs are being met. Now, with that said, I think we can explore that. Again, it would, funding would be an issue.
Okay. Yeah, if I can just ask administration to look at that, because if we're titling these inclusive programs, it makes sense that our TAs be ex-ed TAs. Whether that's just with one child that has, mild high-functioning autism, or you have a class where you have a lot of high-needs kids, it still makes sense that they would be, if it's an inclusive preschool program, that they should be ex-ed TAs. So if administration can get back to the board and myself on that, I would appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? All right. Oh, Dr. Ravi, go ahead.
Thank you, President Grijalva. Dr. Sri, I messaged you about trying to get more information from that last slide. And thank you, Reem, for the presentation, all your kind of work supporting our youngest kids in TUSD and really looking, for the future. I know you're doing a lot of work in the background, trying to plan for next steps here. On slide 12, the needs and recommendations, read to me like a wish list, and I wonder if there's more information about progress and where we are on developing some of these items moving forward into the next school year.
So the biggest progress that we're making right now is with KidCo. We had an organizational meeting with KidCo about a week ago, Mrs. Kiewit and I, and came to the agreement that we want to see a significant expansion of sites. I know that KidCo has set their sights on at least expanding into 3 to 5 schools. A couple of concerns came out of that meeting. I communicated to KidCo, Mrs. Kiewit and I were concerned about KidCo and TUSD chasing the same talent pool and neither of us pulling ahead. So we came to an agreement that we would love to see KidCo take the lead. We'd love to do everything we can to support them, including expansion in our schools. We exchanged some ideas about possibly some of our part-time staff that may be looking for more hours, maybe going to work for KidCo. That might help their workforce open up more locations for us. So that's in the works. The other item that's in the works is we're overhauling the job description for the position that supervises the kids in the before and after school programs. Currently, it's a part-time position, which doesn't make it very attractive, and it is not benefits eligible. So we want to redo it, rework it, and send it back out to see if we'll get a better bite on all of these vacancies that we're looking at. So those are the two biggest issues that we see. Also, when we're talking about some of the targeted positions that we might be looking at on the May 10th, when we bring some of the wage proposals available, we're certainly looking at the needs of our early childhood programs because we know we're struggling there. So you're going to see some of this stuff really starting to come together outside of this presentation. This is just Mrs. Kiva kind of citing on her end of it what the major barriers are and kind of what's in the works right now.
I think that really helps. Do we have a sense of, so the city of Tucson is willing to put in the funding for the KidCo programs, and of course the issue is going to be staffing them, but there is a commitment for funding?
There is a commitment on our end where we have approached KidCo and said, hey, listen, we are looking to present to our governing board a proposal that would see some type of an allocation towards defraying the cost of childcare, inclusive of IELC, for our families. And KidCo is very, very receptive to the idea of doing business with one client, right? We pay the tuition for all the families versus doing business with thousands of families or hundreds of families. So they have that interest as well. And then they have the interest of course, expanding. I think the big concern in our meeting was if we go all out with recruiting and wage increases and full-time job descriptions and advertising for position, and they do, we're both going to come up short. So I think that we've come up with some creative preliminary ideas about leveraging our part-time workforce to see if they would be willing to go to work for KidCo in the summer and in the fall, which would solve KidCo staffing issues and allow them to expand a lot more quickly than the 3 to 5 schools that are being targeted right now. So I think the KidCo partnership right now is our biggest leverage point to try to get as many of these open. I'll also say that part of the investment that we'll be talking about with the governing board with regard to investing in childcare will also be to target IELC families and help defray the cost of the rate increase. I know that there was concerns by a few of the board members, all of you actually, about doing that. So that'll be part of the package, as well as using some of those dollars to not only help with the KidCo tuition, but also help those families that find themselves in a difficult spot with IELC.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Kiewit.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just want to note the time. It's 8:38, and we still have, it looks like 2 long items. So, and we have 9.4, which I'm going to suggest that those of us that wanted to kind of share out, that we put that to the next meeting, because
We can.
by the time we're through the next 2 items, it will be past 9. So 9.2 is fiscal year 22 expenditure update. And we had a pretty good discussion last board meeting too, so if we can.
Yeah, I think Renee Weatherless, our de facto
Is she joining us
financial officer,
virtually?
is going to do the honors virtually.
Good evening.
Did you work all day? And now
I did.
You're a champ. Thank you for joining us.
Piping in via Avondale in the West Valley, right,
Oh my
Renee?
Gosh.
Yes.
Okay.
Do you miss us?
Yes.
No pressure. Do you miss us? We miss you. Okay. Whenever you're ready.
Well, thank you, President Grijalva, members of the governing board, Dr. Trujillo, and Councilor Arnoff. Go ahead and advance to the next slide, Jane. We're here presenting the March. So this is through March 31st. Last time we were before you, we did show the projections going into next year, but the actual expenditure update was done as of January. So this was a 2-month change. If you're looking at totals at the fund grouping level here for M&O, we've been trending now at about that 9 million mark for several months. The number that has been changing is that far right column. That was new this year because we knew we had so many vacancies. And as we discussed, those vacancies get smaller every single month because there's fewer months left in the year to show them. Those are pre-encumbrances that are actually sitting in that encumbrance total. So as we get closer, the purchasing deadline, it has hit, actually, I believe it was this week. So people should be finishing up making all the purchases, creating new POs. We should be able to start closing POs for year end and get a little closer to see where our final fund balances will be. So overall, when you're looking at this particular slide, the bottom total budget balance at 91 million. If you look at that last presentation, it went down about $7 million, but if you really dive into the detail, and there are reports attached, it was primarily all the spending that we're doing inside of ESSER funding. I believe from month to month, that was almost $10 million. So that is what's driving that total. Everything else is pretty consistent. If you go ahead and advance to the next slide, we're looking at just M&O and capital between DSEG and non-DSEG. As we discuss every month, we do assume that all of DSEG will get spent because there are some reallocations that are being put forth before the plaintiff reps. So hopefully that spending will happen by June 30th. Go ahead and advance to the next slide. This is just informational. It does break down all the year-to-date spending of $412 million and how it's spent by salaries, benefits, et cetera, and by funding source. Next slide, please. And again. All right, so the projected fund balances, this is not budget. This is where did we start with the fund balance at the beginning of the year? What are we projecting for revenues through the end of the year and trending our expenditures? So the one good thing is you may have seen in prior months that community school line, you might have seen a red number, and then I put a footnote that said any negative balances would need to be covered. Well, as we've been progressing and with the help of the grants, that number is now positive, so that's a good sign. We won't have to help out or support any funding from M&O or any other funding source. Next slide, and I believe again. So then the classroom dollar. So last month I did say that we hit a precedent, an all-time high. It was the subtotal, looking at instruction, student support, and instructional support. Well, this month, there's another number to add to that list. It's just instruction. Instruction alone, and again, this is through March 31st, we're hit 55.5% on that projected classroom dollar number. That is the highest peak that the district has ever had in the past 20 years. So I would say a lot of that is coming from the ESSER spending that's really hitting the classroom. So we do expect to see that number continue to trend through the remainder of the year. We can just kind of breeze through the next slides. I believe these are all informational. It's just the chart, and you can see that it was back in probably 2005 that we hit that 55.4 in instruction. So as of March 31st, we've hit an all-time high there. And then the final slide is just how those categories are broken out, and I'm available for any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. Board members, questions? This is a general update. Okay. I don't see any questions.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Renee.
Thank you so much. Okay, so we are on 9.3, TUSD capital project update and completion timeline. Dr. Trujillo.
Yes, I'd like to welcome our operations team, Damon Ballesteros, of course. We have Greg Meyer, our director for facilities and operations, of course, Blaine Young. And one of the things we wanted to do is update the public on just the sheer volume of capital projects that we are taking on as a result of ESSER, and then just the good old-fashioned facilities needs of the district, but kind of present them in a more palatable, organized way to show you the category of projects that we're working on, general time frame, and some examples of some projects that have already been done. We know that the employees and the public, they want to hear dates of when projects are done. And I'm sorry, we just cannot give the public that. There are so many different challenges right now with supply chain issues for a lot of the materials needed for these projects, and supply chain issues with the vendors trying to get us these products. And then, of course, we've got staffing shortages in key areas, as well as the vendors. So we really, really would love to be able to show the public targeted finish dates and completion dates for these projects. But though we can't, we do want to give them a general update of where we are at and what they can expect over the upcoming school year. So with that, I'll turn it over to Damon.
Good evening, President Grijalva, Governing Board, Dr. Trujillo, Council Aronoff. Again, I appreciate the opportunity to present this evening, really to dive in to see where we are as a department as a whole, and how we're progressing with these projects moving forward in the department. Next slide, please. Oh, here we go. So our capital fund types that we have been allocated to really address some of the needs throughout the district and our facilities infrastructure are identified in these various fund types. The first fund type that is identified is our State Facilities Oversight Board. This is the board where we apply for building renewal grants. The Building Renewal Grant Fund through the state was established for the purpose of maintaining the adequacy of existing school facilities. The next target down is the Adjacent Ways fund type. We receive funding from transactions that are related to special assessments on taxable property in the school districts to finance the improvement of public ways that are adjacent to our school properties. The next fund type that we have is our ESSER fund. These are the funds that were allocated for the prevention, preparation, and response to the coronavirus pandemic. Our final fund that we have is our M&O. These are land, building, and improvements to land and buildings that we get funding for, and other equipment, including computer software and pupil and non-pupil transportation. Next slide. So this provides really a high overview of where we are with all these various funding types. So what we try to do is identify each of the funding types. Those are identified on our left. The SFOB, which is the State Facilities Board, the ESSER projects, as well as our M&O. We identified again holistically where we are with the number of SFOB projects that we have currently in process of 109 and the number of projects that have been completed this fiscal year of 46, with a total number of projects that we're working with at State Facilities Oversight Board of 155. In our ESSER funding type, we currently have 94 projects that are in the process. We've completed 17 this fiscal year with a total number of projects of 111. And our final capital type of funding is our M&O. We currently have 110 projects in the works, and we've completed 4 to date this fiscal year for a total number of 114. So really, if we look at it as a whole, our department right now is really managing approximately 380 projects district-wide. Next slide. So our Arizona Department of Administration, this is our School Facilities Oversight Board fund projects. Again, the district submits our building renewal grants request to the State Facilities Board. And this funding request is a request to repair for maintenance projects within the identified 7 disciplines through the State Facilities Board. These 7 disciplines are HVAC, roofing, plumbing, electrical, surfaces, special systems, and special equipment. And it's detailed in the sense where the BRG is initially identified in our operations facility shops. They in turn turn that identified issue to our project management office, and we in turn submit the building renewal grant application to the SFOB. The board evaluates, the State Facilities Board evaluates and approves the request based on the funding they have available. And these funds also carry over from year to year. Next slide, please. So again, just to highlight our State Facilities Oversight Board projects, again, just 109 projects in process, 46 completed for a total of 155 that are currently working through the State Facilities Board. Next slide. So here are a couple of the photos that we did of completed projects. Here's a photo of the Sechrist Middle School where we replaced a failed cooling tower, pump system, and internal media. Project start date was May of 2020 and a completion date of March of 2021. And again, I think pictures say 1,000 words. Take a look at the cooling tower there. You see all the internal media releasing from the internal chambers, complete failure of the system before and then the after the new cooling tower being replaced. Next slide. Here at Utterback Middle School, again, another great opportunity to really champion these efforts that the department has done. We replaced a failed boiler here. You see the internal tubes and the heat exchangers on the existing system rotted and rusted out. This project started February of 2022 and completed April of 2022. And you get to take a look at before and after, and I think the biggest takeaway here is a totally different system from the boiler unit before, which was strictly all metal and steel, to the new unit, which is posted there, which is very, very effective and efficient. Next slide. So here we have our ESSER-funded projects. As mentioned before, ESSER-funded projects are ones that we have currently in the process, approximately 94. We've completed 17, and we're working on a total of 111 projects currently in the books. Next slide. Here's one of the ESSER projects that was completed over the winter break at Pueblo High School. it was a complete renovation of the library. Here we really renovated, we removed the flooring, painted the interiors, had some window repair, replaced ceiling tiles, and then provided the flexible furniture to really transform this space from what it was before to what it is now. Again, we started this project late November, day after Thanksgiving, 2021, and completed it the first week in January. So when the students came back, this was completed. Next slide. Here at Bonilla's Traditional Elementary Magnet, again, picture says 1,000 words. Created an outdoor learning space where we were able to really transform the outside space for instructional space and more useful to really get out and take advantage of the turf that was installed. We removed the interior grass and really the weeds and replaced that with the turf as seen. This project took about a week. It started in April 4th of 2022 and was completed in April 14th of 2022. Next slide. So now we have our M&O and capital funded projects. Again, projects currently in process. We have 110, 4 that have been completed for a total number of projects currently working at 114. Next slide. Here was a great opportunity where we partnered with the City of Tucson Parks Department to really provide shade structures over some middle school basketball courts. These have been completed at Gridley, CE Rose, and Mansfield, and the next ones that are following are Vale, Otterback, and McGee. Next slide. And here's a great opportunity to take a look at our LED retrofits here at Robeson Elementary. Again, replacing the interior of our classrooms, hallway, and library to retrofit, remove the fluorescents to LED. And the big takeaway here is our annual energy savings of approximately $11,375. And as you look through the photos, I mean, the photos really don't give it much hue, but as you take a look at the before and afters, the biggest takeaway you see is really the brightness of the lighting. You have a lot less effervescence coming through from the fluorescent lighting, which really is much softer on the pupils' eyes as they're utilizing this space. Next slide. So here we have another project at CE Rose. Similar, we removed all the library carpeting and installed new flooring. This project began in March of 2022, was completed March 25th of 2022, and again, a before and after. Truly a transformed space for the use there at the library that they utilize on a daily basis. Next slide. So again, overall, just a summary of where we are and the projects that we've worked on. And really through the SFOB, the State Facilities Board, to date, we have currently $20,721,000 in funding that has been approved to date. We've expended approximately $9.6 million. In our ESSER category, we have the total funding approved is the same as our expenditures. And the reason why it's the same is because the ESSER projects are identified and we don't have the funding until we get the quotes and the projects are approved. So the overall funding is the expenditure to date right now. In our M&O, we have approximately $9.7 million, and to date we've expended approximately $142,000. So if you look at it as a whole, we're taking a look at the total funding that has been approved in these 3 items, which we've been able to really target our infrastructure and our needs. Again, albeit targeted, but based on our multi-year facilities plan and our facilities condition index report, we have about $35.5 million in total approved funding, with an expenditures of about 14.8, which is roughly about 40%. So, again, the department, we've seen a lot of challenges, as mentioned earlier, with material shortages and really labor and staffing, not only internally but also externally, because a lot of the vendors are being tasked to do work also with other districts. So, it's been a challenge, but as we stress to our staff, in challenges we see, you got to seek opportunity, and we've really championed that effort and that opportunity to make a difference with what we've been provided. Next slide. Questions?
Board members, questions? I'm glad Dr. Trujillo said we can't give dates because, that was my question. Because we have and I understand, we have supply chain issues. I mean, it's something that is nationwide. And so I think it's easy to understand why we can't provide timelines. And I think it's just frustrating on the site side because some projects have started and then sort of paused. But it looks based on the timelines that you're showing, once we have the supplies and we start kind of demolition, the projects go very fast. It's just from the planning and the allocation of funds to when we get started, it seems that's where we're running into delays, and I'm guessing a lot of them are supplies.
A lot of it is. Again, I think once the scope is identified and we're able to at least identify the materials that are being allocated for a particular project, we're able to at least provide a sense of direction regarding our schedule. Again, the schedules that even our vendors provide are pretty vague in the sense that with the materials, some are 16-week lead times, some are 20, 24, 25-week lead times, and some they don't even provide any lead time. So again, it's challenging. I think we're not the only ones facing that, but again, I think through challenges, we look for that opportunity to make the difference still. So.
Yeah, no, it looks amazing. And some of the schools that I've gone into, and it's transformational, especially the libraries where a lot of students congregate. The outdoor learning spaces have been really nice, and it's nice to drive by schools and see students kind of hanging out in the little grassy area and having picnic lunches and having classes out there. Those are all the goals for that. How are the delays in supplies and the increases? I mean, construction costs, everything is going up. How are we accounting for that in our budgets?
So what we're trying to do is when we provide a scope of work, we have a built-in, right now, industry, depending on the type of work that is being accomplished. When we meet with our vendors, we take a look at the supplies that are going to be needed for a particular project. And when they provided us the initial quotes, we knew through industry standards some of the upfront contingencies that we were going to need. So when we initially provided quotes for many of these, there was a built-in contingency through industry standards, through the Arizona Builders Guide, through really national guides, to where when our vendor provided us quotes, there was a contingency built in. And right now, many times 90 to 95% of the time, we're having to use that because of the lead times and us having to expedite certain materials in, because if we don't acquire them, they get taken by other projects. So that's been a challenge. But again, we were able to provide some oversight on the front end when we had some of these cost estimates. But again, some will still go over. But and we're seeing more of that on our M&O side for our paving projects that we have because of the market volatility in the oil. But again, we were able to really take a look at that and provide a trend analysis over a 2-year period to see what that market fluctuation was in a percentage. And to our surprise, some of the estimates that we've recently received for a lot of the work has been pretty close to what was initially quoted.
Oh, good. Any questions, board members?
No question. Just real quick, Mr. Ballesteros, I just want to say I recently, last week, was at Pueblo for the library, and I know, and I never can pronounce Mr. Rostenhausler.
They just say Mr. R.
Mr. R.
I think it works.
And I said, wow, this is, my jaw literally dropped when I walked in there, and he was like, oh, it's not finished yet. There's a few things. Yes. So I'm really looking forward to that. And then I also recently had a chance to go to Bonillas. My nephew goes there, and I just happened to pick him up, and I walked around, and it's phenomenal. So capital projects are like one of my favorite things about being on the school board and the hard work you do. It's much appreciated. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Okay, thank you very much. You were last but not least. All right. Yes, Dr. Trujillo.
Yeah, President Grijalva, the second part of this presentation is we really wanted to come to the board before we get into the throes of cooling season. We know that the board members, as well as my office, get inundated with individual emails from staff members. My classroom is hot, my office is hot. So we unfortunately, because of all the vacancies that we had to engage our vendors. So what this presentation is going to talk about is how we're organizing that vendor support so we can have a more immediate and rapid response now, right, before we start heading into the depths of the hot season. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Meyer. And it's the same thing with grounds. In the same type of a position, how are we going to deploy our vendors to make sure that during the growing season, especially when the monsoons hit, that our campuses don't look like forests, right, when you're driving down, down the street.
Yes.
Mr. Meyer.
Okay, so good evening, President Grijalva, the governing board members, Dr. Trujillo, and Council Mr. Aronoff. I'm here tonight to give you an overview of the support models that we are using for HVAC and grounds. Very important topics for our district. And so, as Dr. Trujillo mentioned, we are in a situation right now where our staff is insufficient. We're actually staffed for 12 HVAC mechanics, and we only have 5 right now. And so, as a result of that, we've had to partner with contractors in order to handle the multitude of work orders that we have coming in on HVAC. And that's all in an effort to make sure that our kids and our support staff are comfortable. And so that's why we're enlisting the help of the contractors. Next slide, please. So with that in mind, right now we have 6 HVAC contractors on contract with the district. And the idea here is that we're assigning 1 contractor to each of our 5 regions, and we have 1 in reserve. So that's how we have those contractors organized right now. And in just a little bit, I'm going to go over a decision tree with all of you to show you exactly how we determine where the work orders are going to go. But it's all based on priorities. So as you can see here, we have 3 basic priorities that we're using. We have emergency priorities, which include if an entire site is down, an entire wing of a school is down, if it's ADA, exceptional ed, and early learning. Those are all considered emergency situations. So the response time that we have for that is immediate. And so the next priority would be a high priority, and these would be situations where we're having problems in a cafeteria, the nurse's office, pre-K, PACE, server rooms, health codes, violations, and callbacks. So what that means is if we've gone out to a site and for some reason we're still having issues and the school calls and says, hey, room number 7 is still having a problem, we consider that a high priority because we're going to get back there and check that and make sure that it's that particular issue is resolved. So the response time there is we will address within 5 business days. And one thing that I want to mention about response time is that when we say that we will address it within 5 business days, what that means is that if we need parts, for example, to rectify a particular situation, then it may not actually get resolved in 5 days. So that kind of, it extends that period there, but the idea here is that we will be there within 5 business days is what it is on a high priority. So then we get down into regular priorities, which then would be classified as classrooms without special needs, kitchens, administration offices, lounges, auditoriums, theaters, and standalone multi-purpose rooms. So the response time there, the service level agreement that we have on that one is 10 business days. So with that then, let's go on to our next slide, which is actually the decision tree. So with this decision tree, this is for HVAC and for our EMCS department. So what happens is when a work order comes in, we start asking questions. And so the first question that we ask, is this an emergency situation? And if it is, then it goes immediately to our HVAC manager or foreman for evaluation to determine, can we handle this in-house? And if we can, we assign it to an available technician. And then the technician addresses that particular need immediately. So I have to say that most of the time when we have an emergency situation like that, we're going to respond to that with our own people, because even if we have to pull them off of a job someplace to get them to an emergency situation, that's what we're going to do, because we feel it would take us less time to do that than to contact a contractor. So I wanted to make that clear what we intend to do there. And so if we're not able to respond for whatever reason, if we cannot respond to that emergency, then we'll call a contractor, and they already know that they have to be there immediately to handle that situation. So if it's not an emergency, we continue down the decision tree, and we ask the question, is this a high priority based on what I've already covered, if it's one of those areas. So if it turns out that it is a high priority item, then again, we need to know if we can address this within 5 business days internally. And if we can, that's great. We're going to assign that to one of our technicians. Then the next question we ask is, do we need parts? And so if we do, then we move over to the next area over there, which means that we need to determine if there's a way that we can possibly move the kids and the teacher to another classroom situation, which is what we prefer to do, because then they're in a good environment again. And if we can't do that, then we're going to provide temporary cooling or heating as the situation may require. So that's what we do in a case like that. And again, if we can't get to that one in 5 business days on the high priority side, then that one gets assigned to a contractor. So then the next one here would be a regular priority. So we keep going down the tree. If we decide that it is a regular priority, then we have to determine if we can address that internally within 10 business days. And if we can, then again, we assign it to our own internal technician, and we ask the same question, do we need parts? If we don't need parts, then the goal there is to complete that within 10 business days. If we do need parts, then again, the same situation applies with moving the teacher and the kids to another classroom, or providing temporary heating and cooling as required. If we get into a situation where we cannot address it, then it has to go to the contractor for resolution. One thing that I need to mention with this one too, in the regular priority, is you see another box over there that indicates a special project. So what that is if a school comes to us and they say, we want an additional piece of equipment or something like that, where we know that it's going to be a project that's going to have to be submitted to the SFOB, the School Facilities Oversight Board, then we know for sure that our service level agreements won't apply, because that can take months for that to work its way through the system with the SFOB. So that's why we put that in there, just for that particular situation where special projects may come in. So that is pretty much the summary of this decision tree. And by the way, we've been actually doing a road test on this for the past 3 weeks, and we haven't really told anybody that we've been doing it on purpose, because we want to shake out the bugs. And no matter when you're putting something new into effect, there's always going to be some things that will come up that you don't expect. So we've been having this actually in process for about 3 weeks. It's been working relatively well. So we will continue with this, and we think this is going to help us, again, leverage these contractors better, I have to say the contractors are doing a good job, along with our technicians as well. They're trying to do their best to get these issues resolved as fast as we can. And so that's really where we're at with the HVAC side. So let's go on to the next slide. So we'll get into the grounds.
Can I ask a quick
Oh, sure.
question?
Go ahead.
How are we going through a grow our own, or I mean, because HVAC is a shortage all over Pima County, and so not just Tucson Unified. So are we working with JTED to try to funnel people into TUSD, or how are there plans to do that?
That's a great question. I'm glad you asked that one, because what it is that years ago we had an intern program at TUSD, and for one reason or another it got discontinued. And so that was one thing that we looked at early on when I came on board, is I started asking some questions about that, because we have several managers within facilities that start out as interns. And they're in very prominent positions within the facility staff right now. And so this is something that we made a high priority early on, and we've kind of switched it a little bit now. What we actually call this program is the student worker program. So we're actually working with the JTED folks. We're also looking at any other student in the district that may have an interest in becoming a student worker. And so right now we have two young ladies from, I forget exact, I think one of them is from Tucson High, and I don't remember exactly where the other student is from, but they're working in the office, in the business office, and doing a good job for us. And we just had another student from Team 7 that is working in our carpenter shop. So we're starting out small with this, but I think once we get into the next school year, we're gonna highlight this even more and push it more, because we really want to do exactly what you said. We want to grow our own people. And Margaret Cheney has been asking me numerous questions about this as well, because she would like to have us turn it into an intern program. For example, if you're a custodian and you want to continue to gain skills as far as an HVAC mechanic or a plumber or whatever, that they would be able to maybe transition into an intern program. So I told Margaret, I said, I think we've got to take this one step at a time. Let's just try to do the student worker side of it first, and then we can come back and we can take a look at the interns, because this is so important. It really is, that we can grow our own people within the district. And so it works, and we just need to do it. So we'll stay on it, but I'm glad you asked the question about that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so let's move on to the ground support model. So again, it's a staffing issue that we have with our grounds people because of the fact that we are using contractors as well here in order to make sure that we keep our properties in good shape. And as Dr. Trujillo mentioned, we don't want to drive by a school and see grass that's 3 feet tall out there in front and in back. And we don't want to be losing kids out there either in the tall grass. So this is extremely important to us, that we do a good job maintaining our properties and our curb appeal. So as you take a look down the list here, this is pretty interesting, because when you take a look at grounds workers, we have 8 right now, but for a while we were running with 3. So that makes it pretty difficult, but we're at 8 right now, so that's an improvement. We still need 14 and a half. So in order to get to our budgeted FTE of 22 and a half. So overall, in the department, we're down about 22 and a half positions. So as a result of that, then, we're relying on our contractor, and that is Brightview Landscaping. If you'd like to go on to the next slide, please. Let's take a look at this. So Brightview has come on board, and at the present time, they are at 32 of our schools. And so they're doing a very good job out there in our schools. We've listed them all up there. We got our logos too, which is pretty impressive as well. But they're engaged there with those 32. And then the next slide, if you send us to that one, there we go. So this is the next 10 that we are in the process of adding to Brightview's lineup to help us, so that we stay out ahead of this, and so that we don't get too far behind. And so I think we learned some lessons last summer. And so that's the whole idea here, by adding in another 10 schools to Brightview's lineup. But they've done a very good job for us. They have have pitched in when we needed a little extra help in particular locations, and they've just done a really fine job. So that's what we're doing right now on that ground support, and we expect to come out of the blocks much better this year. I have to tell you, though, we were talking about equipment delays and supply chain issues and all that. I think you remember back in October when I came to the board and presented the presentation on the curb appeal. And we talked about increasing the equipment that we have in the high schools, and pretty deficient in that area. And we finally now got an answer from Toro. It looks like they'll be able to deliver the 9 new Toro mowers for the high schools at the end of August. So we were almost to the point we were going to actually switch our PO to John Deere, because we thought maybe they might be able to react to this quicker so we could get that equipment out there, because they need something good to work with. They really do. So I'm hoping that we can kind of keep things going here this summer and to the point where they can continue to get the work done that they need to do until we can get those new mowers in. But another example of supply chain issues that we have out there and dealing with, it's a little bit frustrating, but we're going to try to do the best we can. So anyway, in summary, we're trying to do our level best to make sure that, number one, on the HVAC side, that we're getting our situations with the schools taken care of, get those work orders completed in a timely fashion, to make sure that the kids and the staff are in a good environment. And then on the ground side, again, we just want to make sure that our properties are the type of, when we drive by a school, we can say, yeah, that's our school, and look at this. And so that's what we really want to do, and that's the goal. So I guess the last slide is going to be our questions slide, if you have any questions.
Okay, Ms. Counts?
Thank you for the presentation. How are schools chosen for the ground support model?
Basically what it is right now is we've been focusing on the elementaries, is what it is. And so the high schools tend to have their own staffs for grounds. And so that's always been our focus, has been on the elementaries and also some of the middle schools as well. So
Okay, is it something that the principal has to request, or does administration go out and ask, or?
The way we determine that is our facilities supervisor for grounds has a very good feel for what we have to do in the particular sites and what kind of support that needs. And so that has been basically been worked through that ground supervisor. And I think that has worked out pretty well because, again, they're the experts and they know exactly what has to be done in particular schools. And so that's the reason, or that's how we did that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, board members? Ms. Shaw.
Thank you, Ms. Grijalva, and thank you, sir, for the presentation. In regards to the HVAC contractors, I wonder if we can get the response time for the regular priority issues to be shortened to 5 days, because thinking about my own experience having AC issues at my home, I feel like it will obviously it will adversely impact students' ability to learn if their classroom is hot. And I know that there are efforts made to move some classrooms to other rooms if they're having issues with their cooling. But I know that doesn't always happen because my daughter's class had issues for months and they weren't moved. And so can we get that response time shortened for the regular priority issues?
I think that's a good question, and I guess what I could say to that is that the way we've laid this out, again, is a model that we'd sure like to work with and see exactly how this works. And so we put in the 5 days and the 10 days to give us an idea of exactly how we're performing there. And I think after we run this model for a period of time, I think we'll have a better understanding of exactly what you're asking for. And if there's a way that we can ratchet that down some more, I think it's in our best interest to do that. And so that is something that were definitely talked about up front with the model, and that's something that we would just like to see exactly how it works, and if we have an opportunity there to do that, we certainly would.
Okay, thank you. Also, do the HVAC and grounds people who are contracted out have to undergo a background check?
They certainly do.
Okay,
In
good.
fact, that kind of slowed the whole operation down quite a bit. Last year was that they have to go through that same protocols with the fingerprints, background checks, and everything in order to be on our school premises.
Oh,
So
good.
that is definitely all part of it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, good question. Any other questions? All right. I think that's it. Thank you. We appreciate the updates. I appreciate the before and afters. So anytime we can do that, I think they do. They tell a big story of the work, because when you just talk about the list of projects, you don't really understand the impact as much. Pictures do it. Well, thank you all. I think, so we're going to move 9.4, future meeting dates, agenda items. Anyone, Dr. Trujillo?
Yeah, I just want to future agenda items. As you all know, we're working on our strategic plan. We're doing the community forum that's posted for public feedback. We'll be doing a study session for the board on May 10th, and we're going to target the second meeting in May, which would be May 24th, I believe, for possible study action item on the strategic plan.
Okay. Any other questions? Board members? Okay, meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.